I need it! I need it! Let's go! The guy!
All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur, Jordan Yule with you guys. So Jordan, we're gonna have a hell of a show here. A lot of shootings. We gotta suss out what actually happened. There's some question marks around, in my mind at least, some of the government explanations. And we'll take it one at a time. Brown, you got obviously the Australia shooting. You got the shooting in Syria. I did a live video earlier today promising you all the details, and we got it for you. On the Brown shooting, I've a personal connection to that one because one of my best friend's son was in the building and ran out the back during the shooting. So I'll tell you about that a little bit later. And so lots of madness in America and in the world. And the only good news is that we're here to figure it out together. All right, Jordan, what are you gonna start us with?
Australia. At least 15 people have been killed and a dozen injured in a shooting on Australia's Bondi beach that targeted members of the Jewish community. The massacre, which is being treated as a terrorist attack, took place as hundreds of people gathered to celebrate the first day of Hanukkah. We'll go through how this attack unfolded, but it's absolutely heartbreaking news. Cenk, what are your 2 cents here?
Yeah, so some of the conclusions are obvious. It's a horrific shooting. We feel awful for the victims, especially on Hanukkah. And there's a great hero in this story. We'll tell you about him in a little bit. I'm gonna say it a little bit later in this video. I'm gonna explain why I'm not perfectly sold on the motivation behind the shooting. All right, we'll talk about it.
So the attack began around 6:37 p.m. local time. 2 individuals opened fire at Jewish families on the crowded beach where more than 1,000 people had gathered for the Hanukkah event. Video shows a heroic bystander, a 43-year-old man named Ahmad Ahmad, tackling and wrestling a firearm away from one of the gunmen. Take a look.
Oh!
C'est un malade.
Oh non, gros! Oh,
Ouais, mais il y a son pote, il va se faire tirer dessus.
A hero, absolute hero. He was shot twice, but survived and underwent surgery at the hospital earlier today. Sam Issa, Ahmad's immigration lawyer, said on Monday night after visiting him, he's not well at all. He's riddled with bullets. Our hero is struggling at the worst moment. During a press conference, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu initially lied and said the hero was Jewish. In reality, he is Muslim of Syrian descent, and Netanyahu was later forced to correct himself. Despite Ahmad's heroic acts, 15 people unfortunately died and roughly 30 were injured. The victims ranged in age from 10 to 87. 2 were rabbis, including one who was the key organizer of the event. One man, Alex Kleitman, was a native of Ukraine and a Holocaust survivor. Chabad, the organization behind the gathering, said he died shielding his wife from the gunman's bullets. As of the latest reporting, more than 24 people are still hospitalized, some of them in critical condition. As for the assailants, police confirmed that there were 2 known suspects in the attack. Authorities from Australia provided details about them during a press conference on Sunday. Take a look.
We are satisfied that there were 2 offenders involved in yesterday's incident. One is deceased. The second is in critical but stable condition in hospital at the moment. The offenders are a 50-year-old and 24-year-old male who are father and son. The 50-year-old is deceased. The 24-year-old is currently in hospital at the moment. As part of the investigation, we conducted 2 search warrants last night, one at Bondi Rig and a second at Campsie. The 50-year-old male is a licensed firearms holder. He has 6 firearms licensed to him. We are satisfied that we have 6 firearms from the scene yesterday, but also as a result of the search warrant at the Campsie address. Ballistics and forensic investigation will determine this morning that those 6 firearms are the 6 that were licensed to that man, but also that they were used in the offence yesterday at Bondi.
The younger assailant, 24-year-old Naveed Akram, was an Australian-born citizen. He studied at Central Queensland University in Sydney and Hamdard University in Islamabad, Pakistan. He actually first came to the attention of Australia's intelligence agency 6 years ago because of his alleged ties to a Sydney-based ISIS cell. But according to Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, he was examined on the basis of being associated with others, and the assessment was made that there was no indication of any ongoing threat or threat of him engaging in violence. The Jerusalem Post reported that there was nothing on his social media profiles that indicated anything about his political views. His father, Sajid Akram, arrived in Australia on a student visa in 1998 and held permanent residency in Australia. Law enforcement didn't give details about his nationality, but he's believed to be from Pakistan. He held a valid gun license and legally owned 6 long firearms. Improvised explosives were also found in the pair's vehicle, which law enforcement removed and secured. Cenk, there's a lot here, but what do you make of this story?
Yeah, so again, some things are easy to point out. So first, let's talk about how immoral, wrong, and stupid the attack is. Obviously, killing innocent people is the worst thing you could do. We are a movement of peace and nonviolence, and so if, for example, if they were targeting them because they were Jewish, I assume that they were angry about Israel. Presumably, that's the story, right? And so we don't know much about it yet because they haven't been interviewed. We just are told that there were 2 guys with ISIS, but that were from Australia. I believe they had an ISIS flag, so there's a lot of shootings these days with very convenient things like engraved bullets. This is why I am doing it. This is the flag I have brought, etc. But there's no question about the 2 guys who did it. They're on tape, right? And the dad has passed away, but the son is alive. And the Australians have no reason to be biased. So I hope that they dive in and find out who's really behind this. Was it really just those 2? Or, by the way, are they part of a larger movement within Australia or other governments related to ISIS? Now, the Israelis are saying Iran, well, that makes no sense. We're going to talk more about it later in the show, but Iran is fundamentally opposed to ISIS. They're mortal enemies, so obviously that doesn't make sense. So a lot of people are reading what they want into it and are using it for political purposes and agenda. But so again, the shooting itself is unequivocal. It's horrible, disgusting, immoral. Even if you're like what they're saying is exactly right, and these guys, and we find out that these guys are mad about what Israel had done, etc. That would not excuse this action 1%, not one scintilla. Killing innocent people is exactly what we are against. So that would be the most ironic they could do. As I've told you on the show a million times, if there's anyone in a peace movement that is going to do violence or break the law, turn them in. And the second part of it is, of course, it couldn't be more counterproductive. So that's what gets me questioning a series of attacks that are all intensely counterproductive if you care about, we are told these killers care about, presumably, about protecting Islam or Muslims or something. Nothing endangers Muslims more than this. In this particular case, 15 Jewish people were killed. and so nothing endangers Jews more. But then, as a consequence of this, all Muslims are hated, and now pundits that happen to be almost all pro-Israel, but others as well, some around the edges, mainly pro-Israel, but some others too, are all saying, "Oh my God, the Muslims did it. The Muslims did it. It's all the Muslims' fault, and it's the Muslim immigration, and it shouldn't be allowed, and they don't assimilate, and all these things." So you just couldn't do anything dumber or more immoral. So that's obvious. Ahmed Ahmed, the hero who tackled the guy, I mean, that's also the most obvious thing in the world. It doesn't get any more heroic than that. Brother shot twice. He doesn't look to be in danger himself, but he sneaks up and bum rushes the shooter anyway to save other people's lives. I mean, at enormous risk to his own life. It doesn't get any bigger hero than that. And look, guys, just as a quick and easy counter argument to the ridiculous bigots, etc., saying it's the Muslims, So does Ahmed al-Ahmed represent all 1.6 billion or 2 billion Muslims? No, there's a lot of Muslims who are not that courageous. There's a lot of, the overwhelming majority of people, Muslim or otherwise, are not that courageous, right? So that brother stands for himself. You want to be proud that he's Muslim, great, no problem, right? But he's an individual, right? The same is true of the killers. Do they represent more Muslims or a majority of Muslims or even a significant minority of Muslims? I was on Piers Morgan this morning, and Gillian Michael is talking about, well, I heard that 90% of Muslims are good, but 10% could be terrorists, and that's like 200 million people. Yeah, you heard that from right-wing media who just made it up. That 10% number has no basis. In fact, 1% has no basis, in fact. It's preposterous. And if you said, well, I hear 90% of Jews are okay, but the 10% are really evil and we should watch out for them and ban them from immigrating into countries, etc., that would be weird and terrible and unacceptable. It's just as unacceptable to say about Muslims. So do I know if there's a larger organization behind these two guys in terms of doing the killing? No, I don't. Do I trust the immediate answers that we get? No, I trust it less from the American government. This one, I'm totally open to what the Australian government has to say, because the Israeli government has lied almost 100% of the time. So I take what they say is not only not something I should take seriously, but what is likely to be the exact opposite of true, right? The American government, in backing the Israeli government, has lied many, many, many times. But the Australian government, to my knowledge, has not done that. So I'm open to seeing what their investigation concludes. I'm very, very open to it and looking forward to it. So the guy who remains alive obviously should face the harshest sentence that Australia's got to offer. But what I care more about is it organized in any way, shape, or form, and by whom?
Yeah, I mean, this is tragic. It's horrific, but we have to point out what a rarity it is to see something like this in Australia. I mean, Australia, New Zealand, elsewhere in the developed world, they have very stringent gun laws. They're talking about the registered firearms at home. I have a friend from Australia who told me about how the random checks the government does. They'll show up at your house to make sure everything is properly stored if you have guns. I mean, it's those types of precautions that make things like this a rarity, unlike the US, where it's a daily occurrence. So you will see the right, and I've already seen them try to spin this about how people should have more guns to take down the assailants. No, an unarmed, courageous man, barehanded, stopped one of the shooters. I mean, that's what solved it here. That's what stopped it. So I think we need to be wary of how this will be spun, and also remember it is a total anomaly in Australia. Hopefully, God forbid, it doesn't become a more common occurrence like it does in the US. But with the stringent laws that they have, and I would imagine there might be an even greater response from the government, as past shootings have inspired them to do so previously. And then to your point, Cenk, I think you'll see blanket condemnations in our next block. After this break, we're gonna get into some of the spin, the racist, Islamophobic spin we're seeing from the right. No, it's evil people who do this stuff. It's not one religion, it's not one ethnicity, it's not one national origin. It's just people who are evil and violent. That's who do it. We should condemn it, and we shouldn't make blanket sweeping generalizations about over 1 billion or 2 billion people around the world because it's politically expedient. It's disgusting. I'm sorry you had to deal with that. And I hope one day we see an end to that type of political rhetoric, but I'm not too optimistic there.
Last 2 quick thoughts there to build on what you're saying. Yeah, this is such shocking news because a mass shooting like this hasn't happened in Australia in 30 years. After the last mass shooting, they banned guns, and obviously this guy had a hunting license, and that's different, so it's not a 100% ban. But because of the overall ban, they haven't had one in 30 years. You know how many mass shootings we've had in America this year alone? Over 390, more than one a day. So when a mass shooting happens in America, it's barely news. In Australia, it's a multi-decade event. Gee, I wonder if gun control makes a difference. And then finally, to your point, look, guys, Israel has done this horrible genocide in Gaza, bare minimum 70,000 dead, right? But do we then generalize and go, oh, then that means all Jews did this? No, that's very wrong. Again, as a person on the left, you should never generalize based on religion, race, or ethnicity. You shouldn't do it no matter where you are on the political spectrum, right? So even though that is a massive number, it's a government that calls itself a Jewish state, and we still say under no circumstances should you generalize to all Jews. Can we at least not get the same decency when 1 or 2 out of 2 billion people do a heinous event like this? And oftentimes you have to plead for that kind of rationality and decency from the other side. Yeah.
Got to take a break.
And when we come back, some of the worst reactions to this shooting, both Netanyahu and the neocons here have jumped in with delight, saying that we of course need to take it out on all Muslims and no one should ever defy Israel again. We'll give you the stunning quotes when we return. Let's go to our members on TYT.com. Daydreamer Dragon says, my birthday today, so will it be good news or bad news? I mean, on any given day, you know, it's not like we got 1 or 2 good news stories, we celebrated, etc. But yours today's been pretty rough. But anyway, happy birthday. We love you and love that you're part of our community. Boomer Dragon Cat says, been waiting to share time with my community. I'm not sure I've ever been so angry and tired. It really helps to be with my peeps. Look, Kat, you see me get angry, so I'm not going to judge you for being angry, obviously, right? But let's just all stay in the fight. Don't get too stressed. Don't get too angry. Don't get too depressed, because if you do, it's not going to help, right? I need you. I need all of you guys. Even if you do the smallest little things, right? Share a good story. Fight for justice in like any of the small ways that you can. God bless. That's gonna make all the difference if everybody stays in the fight and doesn't get too discouraged. Tap says, is this mic on? Says, I passed by Rob Reiner's Hollywood Walk of Fame star today. The tributes were beautiful. The fact that Trump verbally spat on the life and legacy of Rob Reiner, all while saying that those who speak truthfully about Charlie Kirk is another stain on the presidency. I know in the wide view it doesn't equal the other horrors Trump has created. However, even Trump supporters feel he went too far. That's how effed up this a-hole is. Yeah, we're gonna get to that story in a little bit, and Trump's comments are beyond outrageous, and he did it again just a little while back. So right before we came on air, we'll share that with you again as well. Sexy Speed Racer said, rest in peace to Rob Reiner and his lovely wife. 2 other children turned out just fine. Just too bad that some drug addicts cannot turn away from an evil when they were given all the help that so many others never got. Yeah. Again, thoughts on that story in a little bit. Greg Hill says, Ahmed al-Ahmed expected that he wouldn't survive and left words to that effect before he went into action. I mean, you're all saying you're all right. Micrograms on Twitch says the death would have been much higher if he hadn't taken the shooter's weapon. That man is a legit hero. Green New Dealer Dragon says, send that guy a Golden Dragon Squad shirt, hero of the effing year. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't get any more heroic than what he did. And so, I mean, bless his heart. And by the way, as the bad guys who do terrible things, who happen to be Muslim, put a stain on all Muslims, a guy like Ahmed al-Ahmed not only saves people's lives and saves those good Jewish people who had gone to celebrate Hanukkah, but he also saves Muslims across the world from getting smeared because the hero was a Muslim. So I mean, it's a massive, massive, a positive thing he did for the world. I can't thank him enough. I love Etna wrote in on YouTube member section, a brother in Islam saved a lot of lives. Yeah, Box said, it's in moments like this that the thought that no one has a firearm is more terrifying than everyone having one. I know Box is a little bit more right wing and I think doesn't believe in gun control as much, but we can talk about that later as well. Wamup3323, Cenk looks good today with his haircut. Also, Jordan's quickly becoming one of my favorites. Agreed on both. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Jordan with you guys. Also, Taisha Pickett, thank you for joining through the join button below on YouTube. You all can do it at tyt.com/join. I'm gonna read a beautiful comment about a Noble for one of our members in a little bit. They apparently got a lot of money back. But I did want to tell you guys, yeah, Noble Mobile has this great service now. I love it. You switch from AT&T or Verizon, you're gonna save a ton of money. I did it, takes 10 minutes, not even, nothing on your phone changes at all. Your service doesn't change, nothing changes. You just save a lot of money. tyt.com/switch, tyt.com/switch. And max you can pay is $50. So if you're paying more than $50, there's no reason not to do it. But I got money back, now all of our members are writing in, they got money back. So tyt.com/switch, it's a great service. All right, Jordan, what's next?
Bad actors are using the horrific attack on the Jewish community in Sydney, Australia, for their own anti-Palestinian and Islamophobic agendas, and we have more. But Cenk, are you surprised by this development?
No, I'm furious about it. I'm not at all surprised. Of course, Netanyahu came out and said 3 separate outrageous things. We're gonna show them to you in a minute, but then the only people who might be worse are bought American politicians who serve Israel, who jumped into this thing to smear all Muslims because they're deeply racist bigots who I'm going to say much worse things about in a minute.
Well, let's start with Netanyahu. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu wasted no time in politicizing the Bondi beach shooting. One of the first things he did was blame the attack on Australians calling for a Palestinian state. Take a look.
On August 17th, about 4 months ago, I sent Prime Minister Albanese of Australia a letter in which I gave him warning that the Australian government's policy was promoting and encouraging anti-Semitism in Australia. I wrote, your call for a Palestinian state pours full fuel on the anti-Semitic fire. It rewards Hamas terrorism. It emboldens those who menace Australian Jews and encourages the Jew hatred now stalking your streets. Your government did nothing to stop the spread of anti-Semitism in Australia. You did nothing to curb the cancer cells that were growing inside your country. You took no action, you let the disease spread, and the result is the horrific attacks on Jews we saw today. But it requires the action of your government, which you're not taking, and you have to, because history will not forgive hesitation and weakness. It will honor action and strength. That's what Israel expects of each of your governments in the West and elsewhere.
Now, that is an insane response to a mass shooting, but that evolved into calls for more war. The Telegraph is reporting that Israeli intelligence thinks an Iranian-backed terror cell may have been behind the Sydney attack. You can see that reporting here. The article was written by Melanie Swan in Tel Aviv and claims that Mossad is pinning the blame on Iran. Intelligence sources said the attack on the Bondi Beach celebration appeared to be sophisticated and well-planned and carried the hallmarks of Unit 910, Hezbollah's feared external operations arm. Hezbollah is an Iranian proxy and receives its funding and weapons from Tehran. But there's no evidence that Iran was behind the Bondi Beach attack at all. In fact, there's some evidence to the contrary. The Australian Broadcasting Corporation reported that 2 ISIS flags were found in the gunman's vehicle, and the younger gunman had previously been investigated over alleged ties to ISIS. ISIS is an enemy of both Iran and Hamas, not an ally. This is well documented according to the Wilson Center. The disparity between ISIS and Iran largely derives from their particular interpretations of Islam. ISIS, like Al-Qaeda and other jihadi groups, espouses a militant Salafi ideology. The Islamic Republic of Iran is predominantly Shiite. So that should pour cold water on the idea that Iran was behind this. But it clearly didn't stop Senator Lindsey Graham, who was pushing for more bloodshed. Take a look.
Give Israel the green light to go in and finish off Hamas, destroy Hezbollah. If you can't get them to disarm diplomatically in Lebanon, come up with a military campaign to take Hezbollah down, work with Israel to do that. The world will never be safe as long as Iran has proxies like Hamas and Hezbollah. Do not rebuild Gaza. Do not invest in Gaza until Hamas has been disarmed. Stand with Israel without apology. Reject the idea that a Palestinian state is the right answer until the Palestinian state has been de-radicalized and demilitarized. To every Western government who's recognized a Palestinian state, you're rewarding killing Jews.
And you'll notice the one country he didn't mention in that laundry list of places he wants to attack, bomb, overthrow the governments of was Australia. He's not really worried about Australians at all. It's about bloodshed. And Democratic Senator John Fetterman joined in too, echoing Netanyahu and Graham's claim that calls for a Palestinian state would lead to the death of more Jews. Take a look.
Lindsey Graham was with me, your colleague from South Carolina, who said a warning to anyone who is trying to say that there should be a Palestinian state. If you create a Palestinian state, what you will get are more killings of Jews. Do you agree?
Absolutely. It's an absolute betrayal for Israel and for the worldwide Jewish community, like whether it's France or Australia or any of these nations, our Western allies now calling for a two-state solution when Hamas refuses to disarm and are actively trying to kill Jews. I can't imagine why anybody would do that at this point. That is not the appropriate reward after 10-7.
Now, just to note, John Fetterman's residents, his constituents in Pennsylvania, are on the precipice of facing higher healthcare premiums because of his vote to end the shutdown, in part with a few other Democrats in the Senate. Shouldn't that be your top priority, John? Other American lawmakers were even more blatant in their Islamophobia. Senator Tommy Tuberville posted on X, Islam is not a religion, it's a cult. Islamists aren't here to assimilate, they're here to conquer. Stop worrying about offending the pearl clutchers. We've got to send them home now or we'll become the United Caliphate of America.
Yeah.
When Chuck Schumer condemned that post as a disgusting display of Islamophobia, Randy Fine, friend of the show, responded, Islamophobia isn't real. Fear of Islam is rational. You are a disgrace to the Jewish people. He later also posted, quote, mainstream Muslims have declared war on us. The least we can do is kick them the hell out of America. And again, Jank, this is about a story coming out of Australia, but nothing will ever stop them from trying to turn everything into a new crusade against Muslims and Islam. It's just absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, so much to go over here. Let's go backwards. So first on Randy Fine. I mean, if anybody said what he says about Muslims in regard to Jewish people, they would have been censured, fired, ridden out of town, canceled forever and ever. I mean, he said, what if we said, kick all the Jews out of America? Mainstream Jews are the problem, okay? Judaism is a cancer. We should nuke Tel Aviv. We should starve Haifa to death, everyone in Haifa to death. Right? If you said that any of those things, obviously your career would be annihilated, as it should be. But this genocidal freak pretends to be a US congressman driving up hatreds towards Muslims across the world, but particularly Muslim Americans, on behalf of his beloved Israel. And he's just as vicious and genocidal as they are. Tuberville is one of the dumbest people in America, of course. What is this? The United States of Caliphate or whatever the hell thing he made up. Guys, come on, man. If you're even in the right wing, you really think the Muslims in America have so much power they're about to take over? Which one? Who? Which super powerful Muslim is about to take over and declare a caliphate? It's obvious nonsense. And everything is projection, right? There is one country that has conquered us, that has legally bribed 94% of our Congress, including Tommy Tuberville, John Fetterman, and Lindsey Graham. There is one country we're not allowed to criticize. There's one country we must give hundreds of billions of dollars to because they've conquered us. And they say you're to shut up and no one is ever allowed to criticize that country. That country is Israel. Who's got more power in America? Muslims or people supporting Israel? Come on, there's no human being who's stupid enough to think that it's Muslims and not people who support Israel. No, literally everyone in the country knows that, no matter what their opinion is, except national media and our politicians who almost all work for Israel. Now, if you say, oh, Cenk, you can't say that. I mean, look at this Fetterman bitch. Look at this Lindsey Graham monkey. They just come in here and they're like, oh, it is ISIS is Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran. No, you morons. ISIS is extremist Sunni. The others are Shia. ISIS believes any other sect of Islam is an insult to God and wants to kill everyone that is not their exact sect. They hate the Shia more than anything. And they hate the idea of national governments to begin with. And since they challenge the leaders of these countries, Iran is the biggest enemy of ISIS. They do vicious things to ISIS. So to say that it was Iran because it was ISIS is to publish your ignorance, or the fact that you're a gigantic liar and you lie on purpose to create wars. And that's what Fetterman's about. That's what Lindsey Graham is about. They want to drive Americans into wars on behalf of Israel, get us killed, take all of our money, give it to Israel because they have been bribed by the Israeli lobby in this country. Yes, Supreme Court made it legal to bribe people. I get it, I get it. Other countries are gonna soon come in and bribe us too. And the Middle Eastern countries have all begun to bribe our politicians. But certainly Lindsey Graham is a bought bitch and has been his whole life. He's a disgusting warmonger who doesn't mind getting Americans killed. He supports the terrorism of Israel day in and day out. And what does he do? He's like, oh good, a shooting. Let me take advantage so I can start another war on behalf of Israel. You should hate the Muslims. You should hate the Palestinians. They say, like disgusting terrorist supporters that they are. So, I mean, guys, it's humiliating these days to be an American citizen. And whether it's a Democrat like Fetterman or a Republican like Lindsey Graham, they all come in and bow to Israel. They bow down and grovel and say, oh, you should murder the Muslims. You should kill the Palestinians. And you see how we're the moral ones. No, I don't. I think Graham and Fetterman are among the two most evil people in this country. And they don't have the excuse of bias. No, they're literally paid to be that evil and that immoral. They disgust me. Okay, so now we go to Netanyahu. Did you get a load of his arrogance there? And fascinating things he said. He said that he had warned Australians already. It almost sounded like a threat. I already warned you, you are to crack down on anyone who criticizes Israel. You're not allowed to make sure they're not allowed to protest, arrest them, abuse your own citizens on behalf of us. I already warned you. Now all of a sudden you got a terrorist attack. Okay, it's the Muslims, okay? No, and you don't hate Muslims enough. That's your problem. No, the problem here is hatred is what leads to violence like this. So no matter how disgusting Benjamin Netanyahu is, and the obvious fact that he's the biggest terrorist in the whole planet, easily, we are still rational, decent, moral people, and we don't go, oh, that means you should hate everyone that happens to be in Netanyahu's religion. No, of course not. Only an irrational idiot like Lindsey Graham or buffoonishly evil monster like Fetterman would say things like that. And Randy Fine is obviously a genocidal terrorist. So there's no redeeming qualities to Randy Fine at all as a human being. So, but they don't represent everybody on their side at all, okay? But when it comes to Muslims, obviously they smear away. Now, secondly, he says he commands the governments of the West, Netanyahu does. And he said, this is what Israel expects from your governments in the West, when he was talking about no one should ever be allowed to criticize Israel. And if you criticize Israel, there will be consequences, he says. Well, now you got me wondering, who the hell was it? Was it really ISIS? I know it wasn't Iran. It can't be ISIS and Iran. I see you lying 100%, which makes me think, that's weird. All three of you are lying. So then what's the real truth? Are you covering up the real truth? What is it? Who put these two guys up to it? I don't know. And I hope the Australian authorities do their best in finding out. But then he, on top of everything, to Jordan's point, shouldn't your hearts go out to Australians today? No, Netanyahu blamed the Australians. He basically said, it's your fault. You said that Palestinians are equal to Israelis and that they're not inferior and they're not subhuman and they should have the same sovereignty as all other human beings. How dare you? Since you're not as racist and bigoted as I am, you suffered this tragedy. It's the Australians' fault for not bowing down to Israel. I already warned you. I already threatened you, he said. Well, this guy's an out-of-control maniac trying to bully the whole world into agreeing with his genocide after genocide, grabbing more Palestinian land, massacring more Palestinians, and then smearing all Muslims. Barely has any sympathy even for the Jewish victims here. Barely talks about them. Immediately shifts over to everyone, A, must hate Muslims, and B, guys, come on, as we get to B here, did you not just see the talking point that all of them used at once? Israel literally sends talking points to their paid propagandists, the people who are supposed to be our representatives. And that's why I call them a monkey. They go out like a trained monkey and they're like, oh, if you are in favor of treating Palestinians equally, I am told by my Israeli overlords that you hate Jews. So if you don't want to discriminate and murder Palestinians, you're anti-Jewish. No, that's not true. I don't have a single Jewish friend who thinks that it's pro-Jewish to commit a genocide. They don't think that. They don't think that. Only the monsters in charge of Israel and in charge of America think that. And now they're slapping Australians across the face and saying it was their fault for being decent, wonderful human beings who recognize the Palestinian state. Everybody should recognize the Palestinian state. What does it mean that they can't have a state? That they're the only people on planet Earth who can't govern themselves? And then the enslavers do their list of demands. Well, we have been occupying the Palestinians for 58 years and we've been brutalizing them and killing them and taking their land and humiliating them. But we once offered a peace treaty where we would give a small portion of their land back to them. And the people that we are enslaving and occupying and have stuffed into concentration camps didn't take our generous offer of a tiny portion of their land back. So since the slaves did not like the offer of the slave masters, they are to be punished and further occupied. No, the occupation is a core evil. You cannot occupy other people and humiliate them and oppress them for 58 years and pretend that you are the good guys. You are not the good guys. That is a deeply immoral thing to do, and I'm not interested in your demands upon the people that you have oppressed and enslaved all these years. I'm not interested in it. Let them go, you monsters. I hope that's clear enough.
We got to take a break.
All right, we'll be back. All right, look, I'll say one more thing. I'll probably say it 200 more times. And I know I'm not allowed to say these things. I'm gonna say it anyway. Okay, if you're still in favor of the occupation, you're an immoral person. It's like saying, well, I mean, we gave the slaves all these conditions, they wouldn't take it. So I had to enslave them. I had to oppress them. I had to occupy them. I had to put my boot on their neck and crush their spirit and their soul and their lives. Okay, do you have any idea how humiliating the occupation is? I mean, we could spend every day, all day, telling you all the terrible things that the IDF and the settlers do to the Palestinians. I just heard one story of this is one of like millions of these stories. They go stop them at a checkpoint, a normal Palestinian family that didn't do anything wrong. They make the young 7-year-old girl come out. They take everything out of the trunk of the family, their luggage is set, and they throw it all over the street. And they say to the 7-year-old Palestinian girl, pick it up. Okay, you pick it up, you terrorist. You're the terrorist. The IDF is nothing but terrorists. No, I have no interest in the IDF. The IDF is a monstrous, monstrous organization. The biggest terrorist organization in the world. They keep slaughtering and slaughtering and slaughtering. And the paid propagandists here in America disgust me. Today, Jake Tapper is attacking Drop Site News, calling them anti-American terrorist supporters. Are you insane, Jake Tapper? Are you insane? Jesus Christ, man. And he's spreading anti-Semitic conspiracy theories about the Soros family. Why? Because the Soros family is a Jewish family that thinks that Palestinians should have rights, that they're equal to everyone else. So they're like, oh, smear the Soros people. They're secretly controlling the whole world. Oh, right, decent, wonderful Jewish people are the ones controlling the whole world, what on behalf of humanity, right? I don't know. But I know with all of the paid propagandists, which is almost everyone on cable news, almost everyone that works in mainstream media, their number one objective is Israel, Israel, beloved Israel. Anyone who criticizes them is an anti-Semite. Guys, it's gaslighting factory, man. I'm in the middle of the factory. They gaslight. It's as if the Palestinians killed 70,000 Israelis, and they're constantly pretending to be the victims. God, Israel's nowhere near victims, nowhere near it. They've been lying and stealing this entire time. Oh, golly gee, how did I wind up with all this territory? Hey, Jake, how did Israel wind up with all that territory while pretending to do self-defense? Self-defense isn't, hey, you know what? I'm worried about protecting my family and my home. So I went to your home, your home, your home. I smashed everything in your home. I killed a bunch of your family members, and then I stole your home, and then I went, ooh, I'm doing self-defense. No, you're not. You're a monstrous country, swallowing up everything in the Middle East and pretending to be the victims. Yeah, Joe S. New York says, I just don't understand why we can't all get along. It's so much easier to be nice to each other than to kill each other. Because there are evil people in the world. We say don't do anything wrong against anybody from any race or religion, and they go, no, no deal. No, you have to be extra sensitive to my feelings, but I get to murder any Muslim I like, tens of thousands of kids at a time. Jesus Christ. right, back on TOT. Cenk, Jordan, Erdo, Tito, T25. Thank you for joining. They hit it, the join button below. Fat Satter, thank you for the 11 Young Turks memberships on YouTube. You're amazing. Box, thank you for the 1, and Lady AF, thank you for the 5. They all gave memberships. I appreciate you guys. I try not to get worked up on days like this. I tell myself don't get angry, and then we start the show, and I hear these monsters talking about, oh no, if you really love Jews, you should make sure that the Palestinians are forever enslaved. What disgusting people. If you are still for the occupation of the Palestinians, you are a deeply immoral person. I don't want to hear any excuses about how, oh no, the Palestinians have to be brutalized. My people need to be protected, but your people should be brutalized. And they should be enslaved forever and ever and ever. But I'm a moral person. No, you're not. You're an evil person. I hope we're clear. Jordan, what's next?
Take a look at this.
Do you believe that Tyler Robinson murdered your husband?
Yes, I do.
Why do you think it is so hard for so many people to believe that reality?
Because it's too simple. Again, everyone always has to think there's more to the story. Well, sometimes there's not.
Barry Weiss hosted Erika Kirk on a CBS town hall to address conspiracy theories surrounding her husband Charlie Kirk's assassination. She also directly addressed Candace Owens, the main perpetrator of those theories. Before we get to that, Cenk, your 2 cents here.
As usual, this is super weird. No, the Charlie Kirk assassination is not simple at all. Wait till I tell you about the absurdities that the authorities are saying about Tyler Robinson and his clothes and where and how he changed his clothes. Barry Weiss, a massive Israel supporter, brings on Erika Kirk to tell everyone, remember, everybody shut up and don't question what the authorities are saying in this case. Yeah, that makes me question it 10,000 times more. Let's give you the facts first.
Well, here is how Weiss framed her question.
There are a huge number of conspiracy theories, you might call them brain rot, that are spreading right now online about the actual story behind the reality. 1, people say that Tyler Robinson was actually a MAGA Republican. Or 2, some people say you were actually a Mossad agent sitting in front of me and you were Charlie's handler and Israel killed Charlie.
Right.
Other people say that a number of men in the crowd were wearing maroon t-shirts, and this signifies that his killing was an elite airborne operation, whatever that means. They say that the rings on your fingers, which are
my kids'
initials,
my wedding band, the Medal of Freedom, my engagement ring.
But apparently they symbolize some kind of secret plot. There's also a new theory that Egyptian aircraft have been tracking you. What is going on? Why are there so many conspiracies spreading about what seems to be a pretty open and shut case?
Erika Kirk responded by saying that she fully believes that Tyler Robinson is the person who shot and killed her husband. She also wanted to pour cold water on allegations that there hasn't been a thorough investigation. Take a look.
Everyone always has to think there's more to the story. Well, sometimes there's not. I've seen the autopsy report. I've seen our case pulled together. I've been in constant contact with our lawyers, the prosecuting team. I've seen it all.
Then she addressed Candace Owens, who has launched her own investigation into the killing.
The podcaster Candace Owens, okay? At one time, a friend of Charlie's, at one time, an employee of Turning Point. She has been one of the main peddlers of these conspiracies, and she is making a huge amount of money on it. She is building her business off of these lies. What do you want to say to her and the other people that are putting these lies out into the world right now?
Stop. That's it. That's all I have to say. Stop.
Here's how Candace responded to Erika's pleas for her to stop lying.
I would like to honor that, okay? I can only honor that if Erika is more explicit in terms of what I have lied about. What did I lie about? It's just incredible. There have this opportunity. The questions have been preferred. You could just start like going through them. Maybe they will. By the way, it's coming out on Saturday. Maybe I've made a mistake somewhere and I'm happy. I want to correct that, right? I'm not interested. My goal is not to tell lies. It is obviously plausible that I have made mistakes. I've reviewed these lists that we've put together and I can't find the lie.
And now it looks like the two will attempt to hash things out in a private meeting today. Candace Owens posted on Twitter earlier today, very much looking forward to this discussion. No word on how that went, but there's more. Cenk, I want to bring you in here. What do you make of this back and forth so far?
All right, so first of all, the fact that Barry Weiss is doing this interview in the first place is some sign. So people at CBS were like, oh, David Ellison's got to realize this was a mistake to put Barry Weiss in charge here because she's the editor-in-chief. She's not supposed to be on camera. She's supposed to be coordinating things behind the scenes. No, guys. David Ellison hired Barry Weiss to do exactly this. He said, when they bought Free Press for $150 million and they massively overpaid, they said it was because Barry Weiss was pro-Israel. So she didn't trust any of her reporters to do the propaganda right here, because what if they asked the wrong question of Erika Kirk? And it left them in a difficult situation. So Barry had to handle it herself to make sure that no one thinks that it's anyone but Tyler Robinson. So let's go over the details here. Now, guys, you've seen me on the air for 23 years. I'm not much of a conspiracy theorist. I don't know how the planes should be going into buildings or not. I don't know what temperature the steel melts, et cetera, okay? But when I look at a case, I go, okay, is it logical or is it not logical? So as we've told you many times, with Epstein, did he kill himself or was it suicide? Well, are the guards on duty? Were the cameras working? The camera's not working, the guard's not on duty, that's not a suicide. That's just logic, that's obvious, okay? The only way that you would think, oh, no, I believe the government is if you just have been brainwashed your whole life, the government is your friend and it never lies and they don't care about their own power. All they want to do is represent you earnestly. Okay, if you believe that, God bless your heart, okay? So now in this case, all right, well, I mean, it seems like an open and shut case, right? I mean, the guy conveniently left a rifle and bullets that were not used and engraved. I did this because I don't like fascists. I am a left winger. I don't like right wing. Okay, here is why I am doing it. And then he sent a bunch of texts going, now remember, it wasn't anyone else, it was just me. Okay, that seems so convenient that it makes me wonder. But if it was just that, no. But look at all the different things that are here. So they say that he disassembled a rifle on the roof, went down, ran into the woods and reassembled it and left the engraved bullets right there for the authorities to find. Well, that is an awfully strange thing for someone to do, right? So he took only one shot. Almost every time when it's a rando, they spray the place. But this professional takes one shot, hits him in the neck, knows he's got him, and then runs right down. Interesting. And as he's running down, he's got a baseball cap. He knows where every camera is, and he looks down so that you can't see his face in every single camera shot. Well, that seems awfully professional, but what's weird is that the kind of rifle that was Tyler Robinson's grandpa's rifle would blow someone's head off. But the bullet stopped in Charlie's neck, and their explanation was that Charlie has a miraculous neck. Okay, I'm out now. Okay, that God made the bullet stop because Charlie's neck was so strong. No, that didn't happen, okay? So then you got guys we saw the videos. This is not a conspiratorial thing where, oh yeah, people are pretending. No, you see guys making hand signs in the crowd. Okay, well, now it got way more complicated. Maybe there's a good reason for the hand signs. Maybe they saw a baseball game in the background, and they're like, okay, hey, and they're doing signals to the third base coach. I don't know, but I want to know what the signals were. A guy from TPUSA is right next to Charlie. Charlie gets shot. We showed you the video earlier. He calmly gets on his phone and calmly walks away. If I see one of my friends get shot, I'm not going, oh, okay, that is interesting. I will now call someone, inform them, and I will calmly walk away. It's a super weird reaction. Saying that it's not super weird makes me think, oh, wait, do you know something I don't know? Because if that was my friend, I would say, everything I just described to you is super weird, and I would want further answers. But apparently Erika doesn't want further answers, and Barry Weiss, the journalist at CBS, says, now remember everyone, believe the official story and do not dare ask any questions, okay? Because journalists never ask questions. We just accept everything at face value. Do we? Is that what journalists do? But wait a minute. All of this pales in comparison to a recent clip that I saw, and I'm sorry that I missed it earlier. We'll probably do it on another show. But do you know that the authorities said that Tyler Robinson changed clothes on the roof twice? That he had different clothes going up to the roof, changed clothes on the roof, changed back, and then walked back down in different clothes? No, he didn't. No, he didn't. That's not a thing that happened. So I don't know what the real story is, but I know the official story has a million problems with it. And so now I look at Erika Kirk, who should be asking a ton of rational questions, and she's adamantly not asking them. And I see the biggest propagandists in American media telling everybody, now remember everybody, this is an open and shut case. I don't want any questions. I don't even want a reporter doing this because they might accidentally ask a good question. No, now I'm super concerned about who actually shot Charlie Kirk. It could still be Tyler Robinson, of course, but do I trust the government? What they've said now so far is preposterous. Doesn't sound anywhere near true.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly don't know. I don't feel like I could speak from authority on what actually happened, but I think we're in agreement. We can't trust this government to get to the bottom of the case. Kash Patel and the FBI have botched this from the start. Others might take that further, but I'm with you. It's not clear, and it's because of this administration. But there's internal drama at CBS over this town hall. This event with Erika Kirk has led to backlash internally with staffers, with one telling The Independent, how embarrassing. Barry's been editor-in-chief for 5 seconds and has revealed that all she really wants is to be on TV herself. The staffer's concerns seem to be confirmed by big-name advertisers who also appeared wary of Barry Weiss's town hall. According to Brian Steinberg at Variety, during the special, commercial breaks were largely filled with spots from direct response advertisers, including the dietary supplement Super Beats, the home repair service HomeServe.com, and Carfax, a supplier of auto ownership data. Viewers of the telecast on WCBS, CBS's flagship station in New York, even saw a commercial for Chia Pet, the terracotta figure that sprouts plant life after a few weeks. Direct response advertisers typically pay lower prices in exchange for allowing TV networks to put their commercials on air when convenience allows. A flurry of the ads appearing in one program usually offers a signal that the network could not line up more mainstream support for the content it chose to air. Cenk, what do you make of that?
You know, my sense of it was they put it on a Saturday at 8 or 9 o'clock, which is a very, very dead time on television, because they just wanted this tape to exist. They wanted to be able to do this segment where Charlie Kirk's wife says, everybody shut up, don't ask any questions, and if you do, you're offending me. And Barry Weiss like, yes, mission accomplished. So she doesn't really care. She didn't think she was gonna get ratings from this. Obviously, they couldn't get advertisers from it. She's not gonna get any internal respect for this. It looked like a highly choreographed piece of propaganda, and now it's online and they could always point to it and go, that's it. If you question anything, you're offending Erika Kirk and you should be shut down and you should not be allowed to talk. Well, I don't agree. And so I feel terrible for her and her loss, but that's not gonna stop me from asking legitimate questions. Apparently I'm 1,000 times the journalist that Barry Weiss is.
Yeah, it's pathetic all around. It's absolutely pathetic. I feel bad. I have friends who either worked at CBS or still work there. I'm not asking them. I don't want to put them in any hot water. But I can't imagine how miserable it must be to work there. You know, we've certainly criticized legacy institutions, but if you're just at the news desk and you're just reporting, you're just writing what you observe, what you see from an objective standpoint. You're putting the news out, and then you have this at the top. That's got to be infuriating, because it totally upends everything you've been working for, collectively building and carrying on that legacy of several decades. It's absolutely pathetic. And these advertisers, I can tell you, that is a very, very bad sign. Yes, of course, like to your point, Jank, Saturday night is a dead zone for TV, but we're in holiday season. This is one of the biggest advertising moments of the year. Everyone is doing their Christmas shopping or their holiday shopping. Advertisers will blanket the airwaves whenever they can get a spot. And the fact that they are so bottom of the barrel for this segment shows that Madison Avenue in general is like, I don't want anything to do with that, whatever that is. And it shows the corporate aversion to Barry Weiss's leadership at CBS. So I'm really curious what this looks like in several months. But I think the point about from one of the staffers that she just wants to be on TV. This is just her show. It's very weird for the editor-in-chief of a news outlet to be on this special, especially for a TV network, to be the host of this special. She just wants to build up her own brand, which is all she has ever tried to do. Every grievance, trying to get a teacher fired when she was in college for being pro-Palestinian, you know, the spinoff with the Free Press, everything. She tried to get fired from the New York Times. They wouldn't fire her, so she quit and wrote this letter about how unfair it was. They never fired her. They kept her there, but she wanted to be a victim. And now this quest to continue to build up her personal brand continues at CBS.
I'm gonna say one last thing. Variety also reported when she first came in, she fired a bunch of people. Look, sometimes that happens. You've got a reorganization when a new owner comes in, and probably anybody in her situation would have to do that. But among the people that she fired was 8 anchors. Everyone that she fired was a woman. Actually, in the beginning, though, as Variety reported, it was 7 women and 1 man. But that man, they don't name who it is, went into Barry Weiss's office and complained and said, they don't let me do enough pro-Israel stories here. She's like, that's it, I've heard enough. You're off the list, you're back to being hired. And she then added another woman anchor to the list to fire instead. And according to the other reporters at CBS, that was the most balanced reporter they had in the Middle East. This was a person who covered the tragedies of October 7th and gave the Israeli perspective, etc., but also would do stories giving the Palestinian perspective. And Barry Weiss is like, oh, no brainer. Someone giving a fair, explanation of what's happening in Gaza, fired. You're pro-Israel, you're back in. It's over the top, guys. Variety's reporting it. So look, CBS is trash now, total dumpster fire. Nobody's doing news at CBS now. They're all doing propaganda, and mainly for Israel. So if you're watching CBS, you're not watching real news. You're watching avowed propaganda for a different country. Yeah. All right, we gotta go. Jordan, thank you, appreciate it. When we come back, the tragedy at Brown, the tragedy with Rob Reiner. I have personal connection to the Brown shooting. We'll tell you about it when we return.
Damn it, they failed us. And if you're not angry about that, Michael, and any of you out there, then you're damn wrong, because you should be angry. Young Turks.
It was genuine. He was mad.
Cenk Uygur, known online as one of the Young Turks, isn't afraid to throw some punches.
3, 2, 1, fade up.
Cenk the Turk Uygur.
What kind of TV station is this? The whole point is for me to yell and scream and tell you what I think.
It was right out of like Wayne's World.
This guy on this little rinky-dink website is speaking truth to power. We've been averaging 600,000 views a day, beating most of the cable shows in America.
We're the largest online news show in the world.
We're celebrating our 1 billionth view.
Television, we're coming.
More politics ahead with Cenk Uygur.
He knew that the MSNBC opportunity was an experiment.
and fill-in host beat CNN and headline news combined. At some point, they want to give me a show.
Every single year, that comes out of our paycheck. We put it in, and you're saying we were suckers.
When you, as a host, tells someone you're interviewing to shut up, that's going to raise a red flag.
That guy needed a tall glass of shut-up juice.
If President Obama's doing the wrong thing, I'm not going to tell you that he's doing the right thing so I can, quote, support him.
He says to me, "You won't believe the meeting that I just had."
The head of MSNBC talked to me.
And they want him off the air.
Cenk took an incredible risk.
We're supposed to challenge the government. That's the role of the media. The Democrats and the Republicans are here to screw you. And who on the air is saying it?
I wouldn't have done what he did.
That if I'm going to be a talk show host, I should be the biggest talk show host in the country. I don't think anyone else does it better. I don't think anyone's even close.
Before you know it, I'll be back on your TV doing a national show. I guarantee it.
Magic. It's showtime. And say 45 minutes. I'm hosting today. Now I know what you're thinking, Jerry, your face is already perfect, but you know what? I still need to apply some makeup. I went through this process, right? A few years ago, when I realized that I was gonna have to put makeup on the show. I had to go through like finding out what my undertones were. You guys know what those are? I got my MAC Cosmetics. It says SPF 15 foundation, broad spectrum. But apparently what I have is red undertones, and I think pores are not supposed to be seen. I need all these things to be confirmed for me. These sponge things don't work for me. You gotta use your hands. This I did. That's how the magic really happens. So we're gonna go through a tutorial how to make the magic happen from beautiful to beautifuler. Let's go. I've already been moisturized. That's the first thing. But moisturization already happened. We go raw. All hands. Pick up a couple streaks. This is the guy way of putting on makeup. We got dots. There's some shiny points that generally happen. First of all, here we go. You dust here. I'm putting way too much, but you dust. Oh, get the excess off. You don't want chunky powder. There's like a T-zone, I think, right? Mine is a double T-zone. Because I went middle and another cross. Make sure your nose isn't all shiny. People get on you for it. You know, say, that's not a good point you made on there, JR. Your nose is shiny. You guys are picky like that sometimes. I think that's about it, fellas and ladies. See you guys next time. Bitsies.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk Uygur and Michael Schur with you guys. Good to have you here, Michael.
Always.
Let's start the next story.
Brown University, great school. Great, really one of the greatest schools anywhere in the world. Things can happen. So to the 9 injured, get well fast, and to the families of those 2 that are no longer with us, I pay my deepest regards and respects from the United States of America.
Yeah, tragic shooting in Brown. Saying it happens is not a great way of putting it. Kash Patel with yet another significant blunder in this particular case. But for me, this one's a little bit personal because one of my best friend's son was in the building, in a class about 200 feet away. Had to run out of the building for his life. I'm going to tell you all about that and the perspective that it gives you as a parent in the middle of this. It is, as you might expect, harrowing. But Michael's got the facts of the case first.
Right, and you would think that because of kids and parents, this sort of thing wouldn't be happening as regularly as it does. As a matter of fact, it's been 13 years since the Sandy Hook massacre, and now we have another day in America and another mass shooting in our country. On Saturday, an unknown assailant, an unknown gunman, opened fire inside a Brown University lecture hall, as you heard, filled with about 60 students. 2 students were killed, another 9 were injured. Of those 9, 6 are in critical but stable condition, while another is in critical condition. The 2 students killed were sophomore Ella Cook and freshman Muhammad Aziz Mirzakov, and you can see their pictures there. It's just heartbreaking. Young people in school studying on a Saturday, and this happens. According to the instructor who was wrapping up a study lesson for his principles of economics class, a man wearing a face mask entered the classroom with a rifle and started shooting while screaming something imperceptible, according to his retelling of the situation with the New York Times. And you might have noticed we said unknown gunman. Well, that's due to institutional incompetence at the hands of the FBI, similarly to what we experienced during the Charlie Cook situation. Early yesterday morning, the Federal Bureau of Investigation and their director, Kash Patel, ran to X to tout the FBI's efforts in tracking down an alleged person of interest. Here he is. This is the director, Kash Patel. An update on the FBI response at Brown University. FBI Boston established a command post to intake, develop, and analyze leads and run them to ground. I mean, people don't speak English that way. We activated the FBI's cellular analysis survey team to provide critical geolocation capabilities. As a result, early this morning, FBI's Boston Safe Streets Task Force, with assistance from the U.S. Marshals and the Coventry, Rhode Island Police Department, detained a person of interest in a hotel room in Coventry, Rhode Island, based off of a lead by the Providence Police Department. So you see there what he said. However, that person was released from custody only hours later, meaning the actual shooter is still at large, and authorities are unsure if the shooter has already left the state. According to Rhode Island Attorney General Peter Nerona, there is no basis to consider him a person of interest. There just weren't a lot of cameras in that Brown building. We're not holding back video that we think would be useful, and I don't think I should even have to say it. In a press conference yesterday, Providence Police Chief Oscar Perez also explained what led them to the person of interest and what actually happened.
The FBI director specifically said in his tweet that it was a tip from Providence Police that led you all to Hampton Inn. Can you confirm if that's true, and what exactly was the evidence that led you to this person of interest?
Yeah, so it was there was a tip that came in, just like we were taking any other tips, and that one came in specifically identifying a person of interest, which was this individual. And so our detectives got on it, just like they got on others, but in this specific one, it was actually picked up by the FBI, and they followed through with it, and they ended up coming and locating this individual of interest. And at that point, we did our thorough investigation, examined, ended up drafting some search warrants, came up with some evidence, but that evidence was examined, and we didn't have enough, obviously, to be able to prosecute anybody, and so that person was released.
Yeah, so then you have this from the New York Times. Nerona, who is the Attorney General of Rhode Island, declined to describe what happened while the person of interest was in custody. He also would not say what led investigators to believe they did not have enough evidence to move forward. But today, Donald Trump defended Kash Patel, shock of shocks, and pointed the finger at Brown University for not identifying the shooter.
Has Kash Patel told you why it's been so difficult for the FBI to identify who the shooter is?
Well, it's always difficult. So far, we've done a very good job of doing it with Charlie, with the various times this has happened. They've done it in pretty much record time. But you really have to ask the school a little bit more about that, because this was a school problem. They had their own guards, they had their own police, they had their own everything, but you'd have to ask that question really to the school, not to the FBI. We came in after the fact, and the FBI will do a good job, but they came in after the fact.
A perfect response from the president there. But as the manhunt for the suspect continues today, Providence police announced on Facebook the city will have an enhanced presence and will be requesting camera footage from businesses and residences in the area. Police there have released a few videos from different CCTV cameras showing a person of interest. This is that person walking yesterday on Hope Street in Providence, said to be a male wearing all black, but again, an ID has yet to be made. Nerona declined to share details about the investigation's next steps, simply telling reporters last night, obviously we have a murderer out there, frankly, and so we're not going to give away the game plan. For now, authorities don't believe the gunman poses an ongoing threat to the city itself. And, I think, Cenk, this is one of those situations where how can you say he doesn't pose a threat? He's a gunman. We don't know what motivated him to go into Brown. We don't know if he's still there. Chances are he's not, because if he got away with it, he's going to get out of Dodge. But it seems to be a lot of bumbling, stumbling.
Yeah, so this is what I know from the parents. So, like, again, one of my best friends, his son is going to Brown. He's in the engineering building. The shooting's in the engineering building. They hear the shots. He's about 200 feet away. And eventually they decide that they're gonna make a run for it. They run out of the back of the building, and thank God he's okay. 2 people are shot and killed in that building, as we showed you. So what happens next? So the authorities are super worried because they didn't catch the guy. So first they take them down to the basement and they keep them there for a long, long time to make sure that the coast is clear. Then they bring them out. Now the whole time, my friends know that there's been a shooting at Brown, and imagine being in their situation where you've got a son in this school and the shooting's in the engineering building and your son is in that building, okay? And so they're worried to death, but they can't get him out. The area is closed. And so part of the reason why they can't get him out, because they didn't catch the guy. So the cops are worried, if we bring out the students, what if the guy is right around here and he starts shooting again, right? So they spend an enormous amount of time where they won't let the kids out and they won't let the parents in. I'm not blaming the local authorities. I get it. I understand why they did it. It was a normal act of caution. And what Michael read you from the Attorney General, I get it, that as well, because they're in the middle of an active investigation where they're trying to still find the guy. So they're saying, look, we don't want to share information we have for a good reason. Okay, I could take that at face value, right? And so, but for them to say, no, we're sure that the other guy, the shooter won't harm anyone else, that doesn't make any sense. How could you possibly be sure of that unless you know who it is and why they did it? But it doesn't seem like you know that stuff. So I know what they can't say is, hey, everybody in Rhode Island freak out and be super worried and don't come outside because the shooter's still out there. What if they don't catch him for 2 weeks, 2 months, or ever, right? So they're in a tough spot, but at the same time, don't tell us that things are safe when there's no way in the world we can think that they're safe right now with the shooter still out there. Now to their other reactions, Trump blaming Brown. I mean, classic Trump. Just have some decency, man. But no, not us, not my fault. Their fault. Okay, that's his natural instinct, and he does it every time.
And it's a liberal arts school, so it's even more to his motivation is to criticize any institution of higher learning that may teach liberal arts.
Yeah, so Kash Patel, oh, my surveillance state tech is awesome, so that's why we caught the guy. Oops, not the right guy. So your surveillance state couldn't prevent the shooting, caught the wrong guy, and hasn't caught the right guy. Doesn't sound like your surveillance state is very good at preventing crime or catching criminals, but we're told we always have to give up our rights so that you could have this great tech that works so fantastically. Doesn't look like it. Okay, now, in terms of the politics of this situation, what is the main issue here? The main issue, we don't know in terms of the motivation of the shooter, but it looks random, right? And I would be very surprised if it wasn't random. Random meaning some guy who's lost his mind or had broke up with a girlfriend or hated a professor, something along those lines, right? One of the girl who was killed was in the Young Republicans. The guy who was killed sounds like he's got a Muslim name. I don't see any connection, right? And that doesn't mean anything. The authorities might know things we don't know, right? But what's the connective tissue between this and all the other mass shootings? Guns, obviously, right? And so here again, good news, bad news. Good news is that almost the whole country agrees on at least two things. They wouldn't be panaceas, they wouldn't cure everything, but at least it's a little bit better. One is universal background checks. 86% of Americans want them, including the great majority of gun owners. The other is red flag laws. 80% of Americans want them. And I think a slight majority of gun owners want them as well. But that other 20% is super powerful. So the gun lobby buys our politicians. It used to be both, but now they're Democrats. This is one of the places where there is a difference between the parties. Democrats don't take money from the gun lobby anymore, so they actually want to stop this, and they try from time to time to pass real gun control laws. The Republicans still take money from the gun lobby, are 100% against any gun control, even the most basic one that the overwhelming majority of the country agrees with. But they also do have a 20% of the country that is their base, that is super animated about this, and they will not, move on this no matter what happens. You can kill half the people in the country with semi-automatic weapons, assault rifles, whatever it might be, right? And they're like, nope, 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 freedom, Second Amendment. And, I've been talking to the right wing a lot these days, and you guys know that, and I bring you back news of how they view Epstein files, how do they view drug prices, etc. On this one, they are an immovable object. And when I talk about gun control, they loathe it, loathe it. So given that there's a lot of money on one side, plus an immovable 20% of the country, you know me, I'm filled with hope, but this is not one I have a lot of hope on. I think that winning on this is going to be extraordinarily difficult. And since we're not going to win on it for a long, long time, maybe decades, we just have to accept that we're all playing Russian roulette with our lives and our kids' lives. I told you now years ago, maybe a decade ago, I said there's going to be a local shooting coming to your neck of the woods. There's no question about it. Don't be surprised. There will be a mass shooting where you live. And people have written in hundreds of comments since then saying, yep, that's, and now it happened to one of my best friend's kid, right? In terms of being in the middle of it. And now there's a couple of people that went to Brown that were part of Parkland shooting and maybe one other shooting.
Yeah,
so that now it's happening twice to people because mass shootings, 391 of them already this year alone, 75 school shootings already this year alone. So what we've accepted here in America is stunning, and other countries are amazed by it. We've accepted that there's going to be random acts of terror all the time. Yeah. It's almost like an apocalyptic scene where, oh yeah, every once in a while zombies will attack, but there's nothing we could do about it. And yeah, they'll kill a bunch of people, and there'll be more than one attack per day. There'll be slaughter after slaughter after slaughter, and we just have to sit there and take it. And yes, that is the current state of affairs.
And you'd think that it's one of the great curiosities of American politics to me is our guns, because there is this popularity, not an activist popularity, but there's a popularity to what you're talking about, Cenk. The smallest number of, or the smallest amount of restrictions on guns, which isn't restricting guns or ending the Second Amendment. It's something the conservatives have done very well, that they say the Democrats want to repeal the Second Amendment. Never is that part of the conversation, but they're very good at making other people think that that's what the Democrats want to do, and people don't check their facts, and it's made this very, very strong. But the gun measures that most of the NRA and most gun owners support are really mild gun measures. They're background checks. You'd think that would help anyone. When a gunman goes into a school, if it's in Mississippi or Alabama or Texas or in Providence, Rhode Island, they're not there, generally speaking, these random acts to kill somebody who disagrees with them or from the other party. There are times when there's terrorism in that way, but this is just mass violence. And look, each time is the first time. So you say, oh, they didn't have guards in there. Well, that people are prepared for this sort of thing, but each one is different from the other and how they happen. And now that we're reaching critical mass where there was someone in the Las Vegas shooting, when the guy opened fire on a concert, who was killed after having had survived another shooting. Recently, there was someone who was killed who had been in another sort of notable, I don't recall where it was, notable shooting. And then we had two kids who had already been in school shootings who were in this. It's just amazing to me that this continues to happen. And like I said, it's a great curiosity of American politics that you cannot, for some reason, step in and do something about this. It is ineffective governance, and it's people being afraid to go after these kinds of issues.
Last thing is, remember guys, the gun lobby is ecstatic about shootings like this because it makes everyone panic. They know that we can't pass any laws on gun control. After every shooting, gun sales go up, not down. So it's a huge win-win for them. And I think they're very evil people in the gun manufacturers. Why do I say that? They don't even let you take the most clear things that would prevent cop killings, for example, help you to identify who the killer is, like technology where you would need a certain fingerprint or DNA to be able to use the gun. That way we know who actually did the killing. And if you're defending yourself, no problem at all. That's for law-abiding gun owners, right? They're like, no. Why do they say no to common sense measures like that? Because they think, well, we want the bad guys using the guns. I want to sell more, and if I maximize profit. And so I'm gonna sell the good guys, I'm gonna sell the bad guys, and once the bad guys kill the good guys, beautiful. I'm gonna have way more business because the good guys are gonna buy even more guns.
Yeah.
And when I say about the cop killer, they're against banning cop killer bullets. Bullets that can go through bulletproof vests. There's literally no reason for those other than to kill cops. And even with the cop lobby being as strong as it is, we can't pass that law. No, they go, we demand to have cop killer bullets. That's insane. It's absolutely insane.
You remember when a gunman opened fire on the baseball practice that the Republicans, they played this game in Congress, it's annually for charity, the Democrats versus the Republican, the congressional baseball game. And a guy opened fire on a practice. Steve Scalise was crippled for life from that. And all those Republicans came out afterwards, including Steve Scalise, who could barely walk and wasn't expected at one point to survive. Nope, pro-gun, doubling down on guns, 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 guns. If you can't make Newtown and Sandy Hook work, and you can't make Republicans in Congress having a gunman open fire on them, a random shooting, you're not going to get anywhere. The dollar is too powerful, and this goes back again to campaign finance reform. Get the dollars out.
Yeah, super duper last thing, because if you don't live in America, you're going to be stunned by if you aren't already stunned by everything we've said here, but the very last one. In America, if there is a terrorism watch list, now I don't know how good that list is in terms of actually being terrorists on that list, but if you're on that list, you're in a world of trouble. You can't fly, there's 1,000 restrictions you have. But the one restriction they don't allow is banning those people from buying weapons. Oh, you're on the terrorism watch list. You're so dangerous you can't take a train. But here's an assault rifle. Go kill anyone you like. We've lost our minds. And that's why shootings like this happen literally every day in America. All right, we'll be right back. All right, back on TYT. Let's go to Super Chat. Kinem304 says, Cenk, I love you, buddy, but I think you're going a little too far suggesting that Israel might have put them up to this. Guys, I wouldn't have thought that until 1,000 different things that happened that made me think it. But do I know that definitively? Absolutely not. Let's find out what the actual facts are. All I'm saying is it's perfectly legitimate to ask questions, to dive deeper. And at this point, I don't trust anything the government says. So if the government says, oh, don't worry, it's an open and shut case, but we're not sharing the evidence with you. Nah, no, don't believe you. Don't believe you at all. Now I'm gonna go look for other answers. So, but I don't want anybody mistaking what I'm saying. I have no definitive conclusions at all, and I don't want you guys thinking that I do. Elliot TZP says, ISIS has a good relationship with only a single state, and it's not Iran. Hint, what country most recently funded them in Gaza? Yeah, ISIS attacks almost all the countries, almost all the other sects. Weirdly, it has never attacked Israel. I don't know why. And MCM 660 says maybe they didn't have an opportunity. Anyway, MCM 6660 says, as a Sydney-sider, I'm devastated by the horrendous terrorist attack. I'm also disgusted by Zionists like Bibi blaming it on the Free Palestine movement. Well, yep, I share that feeling 100%. Mail Poor says, PSA for the TYT fam. I joined Noble and just got $17 back last month. I'm on my phone all the time, but always on Wi-Fi. The way I see it, join Noble and get TYT for free. For now, here, take my money. That's awesome. Thank you for sending in the super chat. Thank you for the shout out. Yeah, I got like $10.39 back, so apparently I use data a little bit more than you do. But I mean, you paid $33, I paid $39 for my service. I used to pay so much more. People pay $100. Some people have got their phone bills up to $150. There's no reason for it. TYT.com/switch, TYT.com/switch. You gotta trust me. They don't mess with your phone. Your phone doesn't change your number, your contacts, none of that changes, okay? With it, Gal writes in the YouTube member section, Cenk, I love you, but you gotta get new Bitsies, LOL. Totally agree, we're working on it. We'll get you more behind the scenes as we go. I'm telling story time now for members after the Revolution segment. So at least check that out. That gives you stories from my life, either present or the past. Luna Tickle says, I worry about Cenk's heart. Maybe it's healthier because he lets it out. Yeah, people always worry about that, and I love you guys for worrying, but no, it's okay. First of all, 222, heart test great, blood pressure's great. This me venting and getting it out of my system, I hope it's healthier that way. And I hope that it does. Some of you guys will write in and say that it feels good vicariously. And so if that's true, then I feel great about it. I don't want to get that upset, but I do. Christina Lisa Brown says, Cenk looks great, go viral, handsome man. Well, Christina, you're amazing. Mark Francis 0764 says, it's hard because I never believe in the official narrative. Well, I agree with you. All right, we'll be right back. Back on TYT, Cenk and Michael with you guys. Michael's got more news.
Yeah, the bad news just keeps rolling in. Take a look.
A number of Republicans have denounced your statement on Truth Social after the murder of Rob Reiner. Do you stand by that post?
Well, I wasn't a fan of his at all. He was a deranged person as far as Trump is concerned. Trump derangement syndrome. So I was not a fan of Rob Reiner at all in any way, shape, or form. I thought he was very bad for our country, yeah.
Lovely things to say when you know what really happened in California last night. Last night was reported that critically acclaimed filmmaker and actor Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle Singer Reiner were found stabbed to death in their LA home on Sunday afternoon. And instead of offering condolences, as you just heard, President Trump decided to say they were murdered because of Rob's Trump derangement syndrome. Cenk, before we get into this, what are your 2 cents?
I think Rob Reiner was among the best of us. I thought he was a wonderful human being. And the president's sick. There's something wrong with him. Who says things like that after a person dies? And Rob Reiner was political in the sense that he cared about the country. And I want to talk more about that when I get out of how he cared and why you should love him whether you're on the left or the right. But he wasn't a political figure. He wasn't a politician who sent people to war or tortured anyone or anything like that. To have this kind of vitriol because he criticized you from time to time after he was killed in a horrific fashion, The man has no empathy at all. And people with no empathy are generally monsters. All right, let's give you the facts of the case. It is absolutely tragic.
Yeah. Archie Bunker would have cried over this. That's all you need to know, right?
Yeah, and Trump is worse than Archie Bunker.
Exactly.
It's amazing.
So let's keep in mind, before we really get into this, the investigation into the Reiner's death is still ongoing. But People magazine released a shocking report last night stating the two were allegedly killed by their son, Nick. And the report that you see there was later confirmed by the LAPD this morning, writing in a statement, as a result of the initial investigation, it was determined that the Reiners were victims of homicide. The investigation further revealed that Nick Reiner, the 32-year-old son of Robert and Michelle Reiner, was responsible for their deaths. He was booked for murder and remains in custody with no bail. Nick has shared his experiences with drug addiction, with rehab, and homelessness in the past, though it is unclear whether any of that came into play in Los Angeles last night. The two were discovered by their daughter, Romy. The details of the case remain scarce and are still developing, but regardless, this was a horrific situation that shocked the country. The Hollywood Reporter's Brooks Barnes today was reporting this, that the night before the Reiners were found dead, Rob and Nick Reiner attended a holiday party at the home of comedian Conan O'Brien, according to 3 attendees who asked not to be named to maintain relationships. Rob and Nick Reiner got into a shouting match at the party, said one of the attendees, who recalled Rob Reiner telling his son that his behavior was inappropriate. The attendee, who did not speak to any of the Reiners at the party, said it was unclear what the argument was about, but Nick Reiner's past struggles were commonly known. So let's get into Trump's response to the news, because instead of offering condolences, as we heard at the top, and like other public figures all over the country have done, Trump posted this. This is Truth Social. A very sad thing happened last night in Hollywood. Rob Reiner, a tortured and struggling but once very talented movie director and comedy star, has passed away together with his wife, Michelle, reportedly due to the anger he caused others through his massive, unyielding, and incurable affliction with a mind-crippling disease known as Trump Derangement Syndrome, sometimes referred to as TDS. He was known to have driven people crazy by his raging obsession of President Donald J. Trump, with his obvious paranoia reaching new heights as the Trump administration surpassed all goals and expectations of greatness, and with the golden age of America upon us, perhaps like never before. May Rob and Michelle rest in peace. I mean, peace. This is something out of Animal Farm, out of fascist governments throughout history. Reiner has been, though, an outspoken critic of Trump. He told MSNBC, now MS Now, in September, make no mistake, we have a year before this country becomes a full-on autocracy and democracy completely leaves us. In a separate interview with The Guardian in February 2024, Reiner called Trump a criminal who basically lies every minute of his life. But still, most people, left and right, saw Trump's reaction as an extreme, inappropriate, and shameful way to settle their score. Trump made no mention of the actual grotesque nature of their death, nor did he give sympathy to their families. And this goes counter to what he has had his first lady fostering, which was this whole idea with be best, right? Here's Melania Trump in 2016 talking about how to be civil, how to engage in a civil way. There's the first lady.
We have to find a better way to talk to each other, to disagree with each other, to respect each other. We must find better ways to honor and support the basic goodness of our children, especially in social media.
There you go. That initiative is maybe it's getting things better in schools and in other places. I don't know. I don't have the evidence of that or for or against it. But I know one American who it hasn't worked on, Jack.
Yeah, and the call is coming from inside the house.
Yeah.
So, all right. On top of everything else, he said in the Truth Social statement that Rob Reiner was struggling in his career. I mean, of all the absurdities.
Right.
So, first of all, let me read you some of his movies. Stand By Me, Princess Bride, How Sally Met Harry, A Few Good Men, This Is Spinal Tap, Misery, The American President, The Sure Thing. And by the way, that's a small list of his movies, and those are phenomenal. Maybe the best in 5 different categories of movie making.
They misspelled short, by the way.
That's true. That's his one fault.
Right, exactly. Right. I'm going to post about it later.
Yeah, and of course he was meathead on All in the Family, which was one of the most classic TV shows of all time. But he also co-founded Castle Rock, which created Seinfeld and The Shawshank Redemption. I mean, Rob Reiner was an American icon, an institution. And so now to his political point of view, why did he care so much about politics? Why did he say those things about Trump, and why did he always try to get involved? Because he cared. He loved this country. And whether you're on the left or the right, you have to recognize that this is a brother who was a patriot and who loved this country and wanted to make it better, who loved the people around him and wanted to help. And so if you don't agree with his particular proposals, so what? So what, right? But at least you knew that he meant it. So many successful, wealthy people, what do they do with their money? Do they try to help other people? What did they do with their voice? Did they try to help other people? Or do they just go me, and they just sit in their mansions and do nothing? Well, Rob Reiner wasn't like that. He always tried to help others. So in a lot of ways, he was the best of us. And to take an American icon like that and say things that Trump did. Look, even the right wing is like, what are you doing, man? This is really super distasteful. But why? Because he criticized Trump. So I don't like anyone who criticizes Trump. That's buffoonish. That is not the time for this. That's insanity. So, and Michael, last thing is, I mean, of course, everybody's noting the irony that after Charlie Kirk was killed, they said, can you believe some on the left are celebrating? It's the worst reaction in the world, etc. And good folks on the left, which is the great majority of us, came out and said, no. Doesn't matter how much we disagree with Charlie Kirk. His death was horrific, and we're brokenhearted over it. It's terrible. It shouldn't happen this way. And Trump comes out and goes, yeah, okay, now that there was a guy who slightly criticized me and he died in a horrific way, that's it. I'm gonna say all sorts of terrible things about him and borderline celebrate his death. That's disgusting.
Yeah, and also to just make digs at somebody who was just murdered, and murdered by his son. I mean, it is the least presidential thing I can remember, to be honest, and this guy's done a lot of unpresidential things, right? A president, the White House makes a statement. That doesn't happen anymore. It happens on Truth Social. You know, the White House, the president and Mrs. Trump are devastated by the horrendous news out of Florida, and we wish the best to the Reiner family. Something dull and droll like that. That's what presidents do. And if they knew the person, even better. But never is there criticism. And if there are criticism, it's we had our differences, but at the end, you know, in the end, this is just a tragedy, you know, things like that. That is not part of the presidency. So what Donald Trump has done to the presidency, as the geek that I am about the presidency, is as devastating in some regards compared to what he's done to the country. And I think it starts with that. It starts with what he has done to the office of the president. And I do think it's right that there are people who have criticized him today. There are Republicans who have criticized him all across the board. And people may say, oh, what does that matter? Those are what you need. You need those words, right? You need people, you need Thomas Massie to say this is disgusting from a Republican or anybody else. So it was a terrible thing, and his reaction is so disconcerting and so upsetting. Anybody who has met him, as I know you have and I have, I would sit in waiting rooms with him, waiting to go on air and probably in the same waiting room as you did here, but that you'd talk to him and he was always curious. He was somebody, I should say always curious. My 4 interactions with him, curious. What network do you work for? What are you covering? How is this guy gonna win? Is this really happening? Is this guy really gonna, you know? And it's fun for me because I grew up with Meathead. I grew up with Michael Stivic on All in the Family. And so I'm sitting with Meathead and not this, you know, producer and director icon, but he's curious about politics. And it's just, you know, it's such an ugly story. Some of the details that have come out later in the day, which we're not reporting because we haven't confirmed them, make this sad and also grisly. It's just terrible, and what the president did is absolutely disgusting.
Last 2 things here, because the contrast there in empathy is stark too. Because Rob Reiner was very curious, and I love folks who are intellectually curious. Also very warm. Everyone who met him loved him. Like, it's as warm a guy as it gets from what I've heard from others, right? And so Trump, on the other hand, no empathy at all. And I found this out today. Turns out Michelle Singer Reiner, who is, of course, Rob Reiner's wife, who was also killed, took the picture of Trump in the cover of Art of the Deal in that book. So he knew them apparently on a personal level.
I didn't know that. That's incredible.
Yeah, that's an incredible random part of this story. And even knowing them personally, and even in the most horrific way they were killed, guys, if you can't muster empathy in this context, you probably don't feel empathy for anyone. And that's a super dangerous thing for our president to have. And he proved it today, beyond a shadow of a doubt. Oh boy, buckle up. Okay, we got to take a break here. When we come back, also apparently ISIS shooting in Syria. I have some thoughts on that as well. Okay, we'll be back.
These go to 11.
Back on TYT. All right, you guys are going to force me to read these first. Young Turks members. Asimos Prophet says, we talk a lot about class warfare at TYT, but we still seem to worship the rich. There are plenty of poor patriots dying every day and are never covered. I hear you, brother, but come on. Look, some folks made an impact on our lives. Just because they're rich doesn't mean we shouldn't note the massive impact that they had. Norman Lear, another person very close to the Reiners, right? 7 out of 10 of the top TV shows at the same time. We're allowed to say, hey, that was a beautiful human being who accomplished amazing things. Why do I say beautiful human being? Because Norman Lear in those shows pushed idea of integration, was totally against segregation, broke a lot of the barriers, brought people together, made the country a little bit better. And I think Rob Reiner did the same thing.
And wealth is just something that some people have and some people don't. And if it's what you do with it and what you do with the opportunity that it grants you, it's just because he was wealthy does not mean that he shouldn't be mourned. He contributed so much more.
100%. CDN Norse Dog Dad said, as my name says, hashtag I'm a Canadian, but if Cenk's correct, in 380-ish mass shootings this year, I'd have to go back through all of Canada's history and I still wouldn't get to 380-ish mass shootings. Yeah, no, it's a shooting gallery here. The shootout at the OK Corral, only 2 people died. Every day in America, there's a shooting that is worse than the shootout at the OK Corral. We're living in a shooting gallery. We're taking our lives into our hands every single day. I think people are gonna eventually start to realize it, and it's gonna destroy, that destroys too strong a word, but really hurt tourism in America. I've started hearing it from other countries.
No question.
People say, I'm afraid to come to America because, I mean, I'm taking my life into my hands.
My brother was in Charleston, South Carolina. He said, there's a big Christmas market. It's beautiful, but we're kind of uncomfortable walking into it because of, it's like sitting ducks. What?
Yeah, I mean,
I get why he said it, but.
Camp Corona Dad said, how Sally met Harry. Cenk, your Gen X card is revoked. Okay, A, I totally agree with you. B, I think on Piers Morgan, I said lean on me instead of stand
by me.
Stand by me. Because I have this big glitch in my head. I reverse things, I put the wrong word in, so I do that all the time.
You get the English as a second language pass though, which is.
stretching that pass, stretching it. Okay, but you're right to call me out. Lives in America writes, and every time I see this promo for Madison, I can't help but observe the growth of Anna because nowadays she's handing out tall glasses of shut up juice all over the place. LOL. She is indeed. CK Progressive says, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Anna turned down a job with what was then called CBS News Radio to work for TYT when she started? If so, then it all tells us that working for CBS has always sucked. Well, yes, you are correct, which that sucked for a different reason back then. Back on TYT, Cenk and Michael with you guys, and also Liddell 2006. Thank you for joining. We appreciate it. They had the join button below. You can also join through tyt.com/join. And I'm going to read only one member comment here on YouTube. Cliff Campen 4033 said, "Nobody ever accused Trump of being the bigger man." Fortunately, that's true.
Yeah.
All right, let's do the next story.
Soldiers who died are obviously heroes fighting for their country. The purpose of whether or not they should be there or not, though, is a big question. In the first Trump administration, Trump proposed removing those troops, and the neocons around him, the traditional conservatives around him, said, oh, no, we won't let you. They actually passed a law trying to prevent him from removing troops from Syria. I was with the president in the first administration that a couple of hundred troops in Syria are more of a tripwire than a strategic asset.
So a shooting that killed 3 Americans in Syria. I agree with Rand Paul. They're sitting ducks. There's no good reason for them to be there overall. But more importantly, who actually did the shooting? So we know the specific guy. Michael's going to tell you the facts, and you're going to see who did it. But do I believe the government story that they solved it in 5 seconds flat? No, I do not. So we'll talk about that. But first, the facts before my speculation.
Just like Rhode Island, right? Over the weekend, Cenk, 2 US National Guard soldiers were killed in Syria. A US civilian interpreter was also murdered as well. The incident took place on Saturday. It marks the first US combat deaths under Donald Trump's second term. As for the attacker, according to US officials, he was a member of ISIS. Trump wrote on Truth Social, "This was an ISIS attack against the United States and Syria, in a very dangerous part of Syria that is not fully controlled by them. The president of Syria, Ahmed al-Sharaa, is extremely angry and disturbed by this attack. There will be very serious retaliation." Here's what Syria's internal ministry spokesperson told the Associated Press. The gunman had recently joined Syria's internal security forces. However, he was suspected of being an ISIS member. So he was reassigned to a different location while officials investigated whether or not he was affiliated with ISIS. The shooting took place before that investigation was completed. On Saturday, the man stormed a meeting between US and Syrian security officials who were having lunch together and opened fire. Syria's internal ministry spokesperson acknowledged that the incident was a, quote, major security breach, but said that in the years since Assad's fall, there have been many more successes than failures by security forces. And then we go to X, where this administration by social media continued. And this is Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. The savage who perpetrated this attack was killed by partner forces. Let it be known, if you target Americans anywhere in the world, you will spend the rest of your brief, anxious life knowing the United States will hunt you, find you, and ruthlessly kill you. Ooh, yeah. United States troops have been stationed in Syria for over 10 years now. Only recently has the US military officially collaborated with the Syrian government. Last month, Syrian interim president Ahmed al-Sharaa joined the global coalition to fight the Islamic State, which contains 89 other countries. Al-Sharaa's critics are now stating the attack proves that Syria's internal security forces have been infiltrated by ISIS. Cenk, what do you say about all of this?
Yeah, so I'm suspicious of the immediate conclusion of our government. So as soon as it happened, they said they shot the guy dead. Okay, good. And they said, lone ISIS gunman. No. So Do I know that that story is false? No, of course not. How could I possibly know who organized this, right? But that also goes for the US government. How do you know he's a lone ISIS gunman? So the guy's dead. You didn't investigate to see if he's connected to more ISIS, for example, a bigger branch of ISIS. Was he ordered by ISIS? How do you know he was a lone gunman? That doesn't make any sense at all. Okay.
Not to mention, Cenk, that like they're even saying, al-Shara is saying, our security forces are now infiltrated by ISIS. ISIS doesn't work solo. We've learned that over time. That's not their MO.
Yeah, so I have a million questions. So how infiltrated are the security forces? Are we saying lone ISIS gunmen because we don't want you to look at the security forces? Or how big is ISIS in Syria? How much of a threat is that overall? There are two governments nearby that are trying to take bigger and bigger chunks of Syria and have a lot of agendas within Syria, and that's Turkey and Israel. So we know Turkey does false flag operations. Their foreign minister was caught on tape about Syria that we covered on the show, where he's on the phone and he's saying, hey, maybe we should attack our own base. And that way, people will say that, then we'll say Syria did it, and that'll give us an excuse to go into Syria. So like a lot of Americans think, oh, conspiracy theories, they're all crazy, there's no conspiracies at all. I come from the Middle East. I mean, I was a kid when I came here, right? But I still have family there, etc. I came from Turkey. Everyone in Turkey believes their government does every conspiracy. You know why? Because their governments generally do conspiracies, right? And so I bet you that is true of almost every government in the Middle East, but it's not just a Middle Eastern thing. Does the Chinese government do conspiracies and not tell their own people? Of course, right? Almost all governments do that. So when our government jumps on and goes, lone ISIS government, we solved it, let's move on. I go, I don't know. Are you sure? Did you investigate the Turks? Did you investigate the Israelis? Did you investigate ISIS? Did you investigate the internal security forces? No, you literally didn't investigate any of them. So I know the guy who did it because he's dead. Do I know who was part of it? No, we don't know that at all.
We don't know that, but we also know this is an administration that would have, I'm of two minds on this, right? I mean, they're looking for an enemy. They're looking in Venezuela for an enemy. They're looking in the Middle East for an enemy. They're trying to distract from the problems at home, whether it's Jeffrey Epstein, whether it's the economy, whether it's immigration, whether it's the backlash against their administration from Republicans, whether it's the fact that they're going to lose the election in 2026. All of these things, they're trying to find ways to change the last thing I said, which is lose the election. So the more enemies you have and the more reason that you can put Pete Hegseth out there to say, we will hunt you, we will find you, we will kill you, the more they believe this is going to invigorate the electoral public here in the United States. And to that end, it is less, what doesn't support that, my argument here, is that he's saying it's one lone gunman, which we have no idea if it's one lone gunman, as Cenk just said. But what we do know is that ISIS, in a broad way, is a big enemy of the United States, and it has worked well to be fighting ISIS. So if you have Syria with you fighting ISIS and rooting it out within their security forces, and you have the United States having a reason to hunt and kill somebody else, I think that's exactly what this administration, and certainly what this Secretary of Defense wants, Cenk. I think that they're always looking for an enemy.
Yeah, you know what, I gotta say, when I was growing up, I think I was too naive and innocent. Like, if the government generally says something and ABC reported it or whatever, I would have believed it. I believed it for a long time, right? And now when I look at this, so Ahmed al-Shara, the Israelis are upset with him, and they helped to topple Assad. Turkey did a bigger part in toppling Assad. Now they don't like al-Shara, and all of a sudden there's a shooting that seems to get us angry about the Syrian government, right? On the other hand, Trump likes al-Shara. He was spraying perfume on him in the White House. Now remember, al-Shara is a guy who we had on our terrorist watch list, but he was such a significant player in Al-Qaeda that we had a $10 million bounty on his head. But now he's a good guy. Now all that is wiped away, and we are told by our government, the guy that was so valuable, so dangerous that we were gonna pay somebody $10 million to capture or kill him is now lovely and has perfume all over him, right? And so Trump also could have a motivation to make this go away. So you're not angry at the Syrian government, right? So in a situation like this, especially given that it's in Syria and we don't have a lot of reporters in Syria, we might never solve who was, if there was a bigger operation behind this killing. But that brings me back to Rand Paul. Look, I get why there has to be some US personnel in these countries, but we put way too many people in the middle of the Middle East waiting to get attacked by someone for someone's agenda, right? And so they become like the fodder for the war machine. If you want to start a fight, you kill some Americans in the Middle East and try to drag America into it. Oh, I hate that. So, I feel terrible for the 3 people who lost their lives and their family. Let's try to bring everybody home as quickly as possible. And yes, you should be deeply skeptical of your government. Okay, so.
Well, I mean, I have nothing more on that except the skepticism. I think that what happened when you were listening to ABC and CBS, so much of what you were getting was right. It was well reported, it was well researched, it was well investigated, but some of the glaring misses are the ones that sort of stick with you. And now, as that reporting, investigation, editorial has kind of withered, we find ourselves in a position where you have to be skeptical all the time, especially when governments obfuscate, not just this one a lot, but not just this one, as a matter of course.
100%. All right, guys. So we're out of time here, but what we got next is the revolution. And so I've got another guest for you guys there, a candidate running for governor of South Carolina. Really interesting person I want you guys to meet. And we'll see if we get to a speech that JFK gave that I found to be haunting. But
I get to duck out and eat some of Craig's baked goods that he made for everybody.
Exactly right. So Michael's in great shape. Yeah. All right, guys, stay right here. The revolution is next. All right, back on the revolution. This is a show where we try to get our government back. So we do a lot of different things. We've got some beautiful projects we're working on. Got some updates on corruptionwatch.us, connecting politicians to their donors, to the bills and the results they get for their donors. I'm at some point either today or another day, I'm going to get to a JFK clip for you guys that kind of woke me up to basically how our government's run. An old clip that I found, but we are also bringing on candidates and talking about why they're running, why they think our government needs a change, and we've got one of those today. So joining me today is Jermaine Johnson. He's a state representative in South Carolina, and he's now running for governor on the Democratic side. Representative Johnson, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me, Jake.
All right, no problem. So look, you had an upset victory that wound up shocking people when you first got into politics. I want to talk about that a little bit, and I want to talk about what you're trying to fix in South Carolina. But first, you were in the NBA D League, is that right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I played a little bit of basketball, man. Yeah, I played with the Reno Bighorns.
Okay, the Reno Bighorns. Okay, yeah. Okay, so tell me about that. Just let's have a little bit of fun in the beginning here. How was it being in that league? Was it an amazing experience? Was it a hard experience?
It's tough, man, because the NBA D League is considered like the minor league of the NBA. So everybody that's coming from the NBA usually gets sent down to the NBA D League for a little bit, and I went straight to the NBA D League. So I was there for a little while, but then I ended up going to play professional basketball in Brazil, Canada, Portugal, and Mexico. But I played with a lot of NBA guys. You ask Stephen Curry who won the battle between myself and him, he'll have to let you know the truth, which we won that battle. And it's been pretty cool though, man. I had about 6 years of playing professional basketball, and I miss it sometimes, but it was a good time while it lasted.
Well, you and I have something in common then, because I also beat an NBA legend in basketball a couple of times, and that was Daryl Dawkins. So.
Oh man, yeah.
So, what position did you play, Jermaine?
I was a power forward.
Okay, all right, I can see power forward. All right, let's see. Let's see if you're a power forward in politics. So, tell me about why you got into politics in the first place in that first race that you had for the state seat.
Well, we've seen a lot of issues in my state down in South Carolina. And what was happening was this young person who I had helped get a job, he had came to me and he said he had got stopped 3 times in 3 days by the police here. They searched him and they let him go, and they didn't give him a ticket or a warning or anything. Well, after that, I went to this event that was happening in my community, coincidentally, about bridging the gap between police and the community. And the police that were there on this panel, they were patting themselves on the back, talking about how great of a job that they were doing in our community, talking about how they do community policing and things. And it was burning me up because I was like, man, I just talked to this young person who said that they had stopped him 3 times in 3 days and searched him and let him go. Well, I got up to this podium and I went to ask the police this question, and they were like, no, we don't have these type of problems in our community. Well, I said, well, you're lying to me because I just talked to this young person who said y'all stopped him 3 times in 3 days, you searched him and let him go. And I went on to chastise the police after that. And after I got done speaking, I got a standing ovation. And I was like, man, this is interesting. But as I was walking out of this facility, I got a tap on my shoulder. And this gentleman says, Jermaine, you're exactly what we need. Like, you're the future. Like, young people, they look up to you, they respect you, they want to be like you. And this person was State Representative Joe Neal. If anybody knows who State Representative Joe Neal was, he was very instrumental in getting the Confederate flag off the dome of our Capitol. And he became my mentor. He taught me about politics. He became the individual who was inspiring me to go ahead and run for office. And then when I decided to run for office in 2019, I went to go meet with my state representative. My state representative had been in office for 22 years, and he was literally 50 years older than me. And I went to him and I said, sir, I'm interested in succeeding you after you retire. And he said, Jermaine, I don't believe in succession planning. And I was like, you don't believe in succession planning? You're 50 years older than me. He was literally 83 years old at the time. And that's when I decided I was gonna have to run for office. And when I jumped out there, you gotta understand, I'm sure you all know, you've heard this before, you're too young, you're too inexperienced. You need to wait your turn. You're being disrespectful. And the favorite one that I like to say is, they said, Jermaine, you're too black. But I ignored it. I continued to work for the people. I got out there, talked to all the young people. I mobilized a lot of people. And on election night, I got a word that I got 76% of the vote to become the youngest and the first African-American to represent my district, which was House District 80 at the time.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. We had a lot in common. You're too black. Somebody once accused me of being not brown enough. So we got color issues apparently. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means. You're too black.
Yeah, so if you see my logo, matter of fact, it's behind me, but my logo says Dr. Jermaine Johnson on it. I put doctor on my logo because they said I was too young. They thought I was too young and I looked too young. So I had to put doctor on my campaign signs. I'm a doctor of business administration, but I didn't want to be, going out there flaunting my title or anything, but it's because people said I was too young.
Yeah, no, I was gonna ask you about that. You got a PhD in organizational leadership, right?
Yes, that's correct.
So wait a minute, now you're a Representative Johnson, you're Dr. Johnson. So how old are you?
I'm 40.
Okay, so I'm wondering if you're secretly 68 or something.
Yeah, I just turned 40 in July, man. So just get my first gray hairs in my beard now.
So how'd you beat the 22-year incumbent?
It was really talking to people. So I was on the Richland County Recreation Commission for about 4 years. And when I got on that commission, what I did is I never felt right about making policy about people who I had never met. So when we have 52 locations in this county, and I drove around to all the different locations, meeting all the employees, meeting all the constituents, meeting all the people, because I wanted to know how it was for them on the ground. I didn't feel right sitting up top writing policy for those individuals. So when I did that, a lot of people still to this day will say Jermaine is the very first board member that they had ever met. And I truly cared about the people. So because of that, when I decided to run for office and I started doing my call time and calling, doing some phone banking, people would answer the phone. They'd say, Jermaine, like Jermaine who? And their kids would be in the background saying, oh, that's Jermaine from the gym. He's always in the gym playing basketball with us. He's always mentoring us and talking to us about certain things. And that allowed them to gain a little bit of trust for who I was, knowing that I always had their children and their family's best interests at heart.
Yeah, by the way, our own J.R. Jackson covered one of Jermaine's fiery speeches in South Carolina on the watch list. You guys should check that out. Love that one. So Jermaine, tell me about why you're running for governor. What's the issues in South Carolina you have to fix?
Well, first off, in South Carolina, if people didn't know, they have a trifecta. This state has been ran by a single party rule for 22 years. They have the governor's mansion, they have a supermajority in the House, they have a supermajority in the Senate, they have the education, they have agriculture, they have majority of the congressional seats with the exception of Congressman Clyburn. They have all the power that you would ever want to have. And essentially, they have done nothing with that power because our roads are the top 2 worst in the country. We have the highest percentage of bridges in disrepair in the entire country. We're 43rd in education. We have a homicide rate higher than that of California. We have over 600 unsolved murders in South Carolina just since 2020. We have issues here. And because of the issues that we have here in South Carolina, I wanted to stand up. I wanted to make sure that I'm advocating for the people of South Carolina to bring the priorities back to the forefront of this state. Because everybody in South Carolina wants cheaper groceries. Everybody wants good infrastructure. Everybody wants better education. Everybody wants affordable health care. Everybody wants a safe neighborhood. And that's something that's not partisan at all. People want these things, they need these things, and they deserve these things. And they need leaders who are gonna stop playing politics with their lives and actually get some work done.
So Jermaine, why do you think they don't get them? I mean, the things you're pointing out are pretty glaring issues, right? If you've ranked this low in terms of education, crime, et cetera, especially as governor. I mean, these are really, really core issues. So why do you think that governors in the past have not tackled them?
Well, it's status quo. Somebody's getting paid from keeping the issues here, and they're getting paid handsomely because they're keeping the issues the way they are. And we know the world makes the most money when wars break out, and that's what's happening here in South Carolina. People are just fighting about certain social issues. Instead of addressing the critical issues that we have here in South Carolina, they'd rather talk about social issues. They'd rather give Fox News talking points, such as men and women in bathrooms. They'd rather talk about banning books. They'd rather talk about abortion. They'd rather talk about guns. When really our insurance costs are going skyrocketing through the high because we won't fix our darn infrastructure. That's a problem, and the people of South Carolina, they are so convinced that it's the Democrats' fault that while these issues are happening. And I think the Democrats, we've done ourselves a disservice without just letting people know the truth that, hey, listen, the message is there's not enough Democrats to even affect anything in the state government. Literally because of this supermajority that they have, All Democrats can say, we're not going to show up one day, just like Texas did. But the difference here that the Republicans will have enough of a quorum here in South Carolina that they can pass any law that they want without a single Democrat vote. We've done a poor job at letting the people of South Carolina know that, hey, these are the people in power. If you want to fix something, go talk to them. It has nothing to do with us.
Yeah, how can it be the Democrats' fault if the Democrats not only are not in charge, but haven't been in charge for a long, long time?
Right.
And are a tiny minority in South Carolina. No, the Republican politicians did this in South Carolina. No ands, ifs, or buts about it. Okay, but nevertheless, that is an issue you have in a deeply red state like South Carolina. So how do you get past it in order to win the general election?
Well, the thing is, we know in South Carolina that in 2020, Jamie Harrison raised an ungodly amount of money in 2020. But what we learned from that race is that when he got 1.1 million votes, there are at least 1.1 million people in South Carolina that are willing to vote for a black guy and a Democrat at that. That's what we learned. But also in 2022, when our current governor ran, he only got 987,000 votes. That means that there are people here who are willing to vote more for the black Democrat than they are to vote for the Republican governor. We have the numbers here in South Carolina. We're not a red state, we're a no vote state. We're not a red state, we are a purple state. We can actually win, but the problem is GOTV. But we do have a path to victory if we inspire, if we motivate, if we provide some hope for people and some real solutions to their everyday problems.
So Jermaine, where would you put yourself within the Democratic Party? Because there are different wings of the Democratic Party. There are folks who are a little bit more conservative, whether it's social issues, economic issues. Folks who are more progressive or populist. There's a lot of different factions. So where would you put yourself?
I am an independent thinker through and through. I will go with whatever the solution is to solve the people's problems. And all the media in South Carolina, they have always framed me as the independent thinker. I have stood with Republicans when they were right about something. I have stood with Democrats, majority of the time when they're right about something. I have stood out by myself when I felt like both sides were wrong. And I don't have a problem with that. So I don't even know. I think we might have to invent a new spectrum of Democrat for myself, because I'm going wherever somebody is right. If it's a Green Party person who I believe is right about something, I will go there. I truly want to just solve the problems. And I'm not going to play politics with people's lives, because people are dying every single day based on us playing politics. It makes no sense whatsoever. While we have a state that has one of the highest amounts of guns stolen out of cars in the country, but yet we won't enact a negligent storage law in South Carolina to save lives. I mean, we won't do it. So I think I'm an independent thinker. I'm an independent type individual, and I'm always gonna do what's right for people.
So it's funny that the category of independent thinkers is such a different, small minority of politicians. Like most politicians, not independent thinking. Well, you give me an agenda, I don't even think about it, I'm gonna do it, right? And that's it.
And it's crazy, yes. This is literally what we see here, yeah.
Yeah, so it's funny that that's a separate category. But anyways, all right, one more thing. So Dr. Johnson, people are gonna ask, yeah, okay, I hear you, but we've had a lot of Democrats, including people that came on this show, and say, oh, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. Then they get into office and they just don't do it, right? So how can people trust you and know that you are going to actually deliver these things?
So I'm never gonna lie to anybody. And I've told people that I'm gonna present a budget that is also going to get rid of some of this governmental waste, because we do have governmental waste that's going on in South Carolina. And I've already made this claim. I said, if I don't present that budget the way that I say I'm gonna present this budget, I will resign on the spot. I put my money where my mouth is. So if I don't do and hold myself accountable the way that you all want to hold me accountable, I will resign on the spot. And I don't think any other candidates out there will actually give you that word that they will resign if they don't do what they say they're gonna do. So you can trust me, because I will hold myself accountable by resigning if I don't do what I'm supposed to be doing.
All right, and last question, why are you better than the other Democrats in the race?
What are the Democrats in the race?
I don't know, that's what I'm asking. Normally there's a primary for an important position like governor. Are there any other Democrats in the race?
There might be one, but we're not even going to talk about him because I've got a plan, and this is what we're going to do here. I'm not running against anybody else. I'm running for the people of South Carolina, and that's the only people I need to be talking about right now. Not anybody else who wants to think that they're better or the best or anything like that. We are running for the people of South Carolina.
And what kind of chance do they have against you when even Steph Curry couldn't beat you?
Listen, you got to call Steph and ask him, man, how he feels, 20 years after losing to me, man.
Yeah, well, since I got him on speed dial, I'm gonna call him after the show and ask to confirm your story.
Yeah. Let him know. So we were actually in the Sports Illustrated together. There's a picture of me and him in the Sports Illustrated where I was guarding him and everything, man. So he will remember that it was his last loss of his collegiate career.
All right, okay. If I ever run into Steph Curry, then I'll ask him. Okay, all right. Jermaine Johnson, state rep in South Carolina, running for governor in South Carolina's website is johnsonforsc.com, johnsonforsc.com. Jermaine, thank you for joining us, appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me.
No problem. All right, there you go. There's a exciting, interesting candidate, and he is backed by independents. Andrew Yang likes him too. So independent thinker is correct. Okay, so now we got a little bit of time, and I wanted to show you that JFK video. So, look, I didn't put this together. I just randomly saw it on YouTube, and it has a little bit of an interesting ending. But I got something out of it that I wanted to share with you guys, and it made me rethink some stuff. So let's all watch it together, and then I'll tell you how it relates to the revolution and everything that we do. Let's watch.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. No president should fear public scrutiny of his program, for from that scrutiny comes understanding, and from that understanding comes support or opposition, and both are necessary. I am not asking your newspapers to support an administration, but I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people. For I have complete confidence and the response and dedication of our citizens whenever they are fully informed. I not only could not stifle controversy among your readers, I welcome it. This administration intends to be candid about its errors. For as a wise man once said, an error doesn't become a mistake until you refuse to correct it.
The report is that the president is dead. The word we have is that he is dead, that he was shot by an assassin at the intersection of Elm and Houston Streets just as he was going into the underpass. The word we have is from a doctor on the staff of Parkland Hospital who says that it is true. He was in tears when he told me just a moment ago.
So for those of you who are not watching the show but are listening to the audio, JFK gave that speech a couple of weeks before his assassination, warning about secret societies and this monolithic covert operation that exists in the world, and a couple of weeks later he's dead. So what conclusions do I draw from that? Well, a decent amount, mainly that as I was growing up, and I mentioned it today on the show, that I grew up a little bit naive. So when I started thinking about that speech that he gave, I realized a couple of things. So number one, people always say, why doesn't the president get into office and tell us what actually happens, right? So JFK gets into office, begins to tell us about how there are these covert operatives that are actually controlling things on a level that you would be shocked by. Boom, he's assassinated and gone, okay? So, all right, well, let's look into that more and let's think about it more. Well, I read a decent amount about JFK assassination, but I think my favorite book on it was The Devil's Chessboard by David Talbot. And the full title is The Devil's Chessboard, Allen Dulles, the CIA, and the Rise of America's Secret Government, okay? So did the CIA run basically a secret government within the government of America? Yes, we know that now definitively, right? So they would do coups in Latin America, but not for the benefit of the American people, but for the benefit of business interests. Who was Allen Dulles? Allen Dulles was the head of the CIA from its basically inception and renaming, all the way until JFK fired him. He did not take kindly to that firing. But who was Allen Dulles' brother? It was John Foster Dulles, and he was the Secretary of State. And so they were both in a family that ran business interests. I believe it was banking. And they were connected to a lot of other American business interests. So the Dulles brothers at the State Department and the CIA basically commandeered the American government to not serve the American people, but to serve the business interests that they were connected to, including their own. So when an American president stood up for the American people, they loathed him. And of course, there was the Bay of Pigs, and I don't want to get into all of JFK's history, right? But so that is specific to what happened to JFK. That is a US president warning us about this unequivocally, right? So now I think the chance that Allen Dulles had something to do with JFK's death is overwhelming, enormously high, right? And so when people talk about the deep state, what's the deep state? Well, once Allen Dulles was fired, he was technically not part of the government, but he still had enormous contacts within the CIA. And of course, there's speculation about the mob and others, right? And those folks, some of whom were in the government, some of whom were not in the government, are what they would call back then the deep state. So does that deep state exist now as it did back then? Well, I used to think no. I see, significant to massive incompetence at the CIA. They tried a coup against Maduro last time Trump was president, didn't work. They've tried now 2 or 3 coups that we've covered that didn't work. They just don't, they're not as competent as they used to be, etc. And are they still connected to business interests in the way that they were when there was only a small number of families? Back in the day, skull and bones was a real thing. And there was a small number of families who went to Yale and Harvard, and some of those folks in those families would go into government, and some would go into business, and they would all help one another, and they would grow richer and richer and richer at our expense. Now the country's too big. You can't contain it to just a couple of families or a handful of families or people that are in Skull and Bones at Yale, etc. Right? So I thought we might be past this. But as I listened to that speech actually a couple of times, what struck me, guys, was, Cenk, of course, what were you thinking? Anytime that there's a collection of people, there's going to be a group that decides, well, we've got a bunch of advantages, right? We were born into wealth, or we're already in government, or we have a lot more connections, or they're more strategic, a number of things. Will they form a group to look out for themselves above everyone else? Of course they will. Of course they will. It's absolute, immovable human nature. So you think about it in super simplistic terms. You ever watch Survivor? But you can watch any of these shows. But what happens in Survivor is, as soon as they get there, I think there's about 18 people if I remember right, and instantly groups form. Group of 2, group of 3, group of 4. And they are against everyone else, and they want to eliminate everyone else. Now that's part of the point of the game, obviously, right? But these little cliques form right away, and they try to get the upper hand and to be the most powerful among the whole group, and then look out only for their interests. Because it's humanity 101. There's a wonderful side of humanity, but that's the downside of humanity. So we were taught, and I was taught by American media growing up, oh, don't be ridiculous. There are no conspiracies. No, the JFK was killed by Lee Harvey Oswald by a bullet that went like this. And is questioning the government and Lee Harvey Oswald shooting him outrageous. Oh, Jack Ruby, who shot Lee Harvey Oswald, claimed that he did it because he was so patriotic. That's utter bullshit. Jack Ruby was a mobster. And in fact, he had said on the record that he hated JFK. So conveniently, the patsy is then killed by a mobster. By the way, Jack Ruby was in prison a long time. In another book I read, Jack Ruby asked to speak to Congress over and over and over again and said, I know who actually killed JFK, and they never let him speak. So I'm beating myself up because I believed people when they were like, oh, don't be ridiculous. No, there are no conspiracies. There are no group of people who are trying to get together and lord their power over other people. Of course there are. Of course there are. The only question is who. So in the conversation I had with Michael during the regular show, I told you about the false flag operation that Turkey got caught doing a bunch of years ago in Syria. And guys, if you come from a country that isn't America, like if it rained in Turkey, they thought the CIA did it, right? And so why did they think that? And is that too conspiratorial? Obviously, right? But why did they think that? Because their own government ran conspiracies all the time. And then did the CIA run conspiracies in the Middle East? Of course they did. Now we know it, and it's documented, right? So I think we got too complacent here in America. And we started to think, oh no, there are no powerful people that got together and are running things. Oh, that's crazy. No one should think that. Everything is just as you see it. The politicians are honest, we were told by our media. And they're having real debates, we were told by our media. And there are no, like, oh, the CIA is no big deal, they're not in charge anymore. This, that, we were told a whole bunch of stuff that I now look back and go, oh no, none of that is true. And so, and they use our good nature against us. What do I mean by that? If you're a good person, you don't naturally think to scheme to get power over other people, to use and abuse that power to gain yourself more wealth and power and status at the expense of others. That thought doesn't occur to you because you're a good person. But there are people, as we see with Donald Trump, with the unbelievable, record-breaking lack of empathy for Rob Reiner and his death, there are some people who have no empathy at all. And that, by the way, gives them a giant advantage because they think, who cares who I harm? Who cares how many eggs I break? I don't care. I hurt others, I don't care. Do you know how much easier it makes if you don't care about other human beings in order to accumulate power? And so are there a group of people who've gotten together and have more power than we know? And would that group of people then just announce it to us? And they go, oh yeah, by the way, we're here. We're, whatever you want to call us, deep state, CIA, whatever it might be. And we just want to let you guys know we're secretly manipulating things behind the scenes. No, of course they wouldn't tell you that. By definition, it would have to be secret. So I'm not telling you that I have the answers because I literally don't. And if I did, I'd share it with you right away, you know me, right? So I don't know who's in charge. I don't know who's in that group. But I now realize, especially with a president, an American president, literally telling us and then being killed immediately thereafter, are there a group of secret, and it might not, and by the way, it's probably not one group. It's probably a whole bunch of groups that are working in secret, the intelligence agencies, obviously, right? For all these different governments. So, and then there might be others as well, a group of businessmen, a group of this, a group of that are working behind the scenes. Will we ever find out about them? I don't know. I guess it would require one super honest and super brave president to tell us about that. But I'm done with the era of people telling me, oh, Jake, don't be ridiculous. No, the world is as our government is telling us. And there's nothing behind the scenes. And no group of people ever got together to protect their own power or to support their own power and their own wealth and status. No, that's absurd. Of course they exist. And so the question is, who are they and what could we do to counter them? And I don't have those answers yet. But there are things afoot behind the scenes that we are not aware of. And the last thing is about the intelligence agencies. Their job is literally to lie to you. So I'll use one example. I don't want you to take too much from this example, right? I gave you the example of Turkey doing a false flag operation. In this case, when we talk about all the different connections that Jeffrey Epstein had to Mossad, right? And to Israel. And I don't want to give you the whole laundry list again, but I assume that you saw it in a different show that we did, right? And people go, oh, Jake, that's outrageous. Are you saying that Mossad, the secret intelligence agency for the Israelis, might do something that was immoral? Yeah, that's what I'm saying, of course. But, and maybe I'm more frustrated than you guys or the average bear, because the people that I know are not that skeptical. They're very, very trusting of their government, etc. What they are skeptical of is anyone who says that things might not be as we see them, right? And so that's why when I say, well, of course the intelligence agencies are doing probably terrible things and conspiring to help their own country or their own group, whether it's a business group or whatever it might be, and against everyone else. And people in power tell us that that's an outrageous idea. And then apparently the CIA, the Mossad, and all the other secret intelligence agencies are all angels and they have our best interests in mind. That has not been my experience. So I don't want to depress you, but we have to fight those. We have to find out who those guys are, find out how we can fight them, and get past them as well. It's not like we can't. Many presidents who have represented the American people for real have won. FDR, JFK, in some ways LBJ. I know it's a different era, but I believe that we can do it in this era too. But it's not going to be easy, and I need everybody to have their eyes wide open for all the bogeys out there and for all the things that go bump in the night. Because if someone's telling you there are no things that go bump in the night, they might be part of the people who are going bump in the night. So, all right, guys, that is among the reasons why we need this revolution, a peaceful, non-violent one. Wish us luck. All right, much love. We'll see you tomorrow. Oh, for the members, I'll do a bonus episode as always, and maybe about my gullibility as a kid. So we'll be right back for the members on that.